5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
What? If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor.
What difference at this point does it make?
Doesn't make sense.
If you're looking to make sense out of what's going on in the world today, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, Annie, the radio chick Ubelis, and featuring Curtis C.S. Bennett and the most interesting guests that you'll find anywhere on internet radio. And you can join the show and let your voice be heard by dialing 917-889-3675. So sit back, relax, and remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
When an emergency strikes, what's your first impulse? If your answer is run to the grocery store, you're likely to find chaos and plenty of empty shelves. So how do you avoid this? Well, it's simple. You use today to make a plan, to prepare for things that may happen. It's a hurricane, earthquake, blizzard, or even social unrest, especially in today's political environment. The practical place to start is by storing up food in your home. And I use My Patriot Supply for my food storage. If you don't have an emergency food supply, it's time to do so. Here's a great item that makes it really simple. A 2-week food kit that comes in a rugged tote. And it's only $75 when you go to my special website, preparewithsouthernsense.com, or call 888-441-7290. This food kit includes breakfast, lunch, and dinners that will last up to 25 years on your storage shelves. So order now and prepare yourself, and then rest easy. So it's very simple. Just call 888-441-7290 or go to preparewithsouthernsense.com. You know what? Let's make it even more simple than that. You're listening to my show, and it's called Southern Sense, and you know you put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com, and click on the icon for My Patriot Food. Well, if you want to insist, you can still go to 888-441-7290 or go to my website, Southern Sense, put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com. Be prepared. All right, and welcome back. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to another adventure here on Blog Talk Radio. You're listening live to Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, SHR Media, the Lone Star Daily News, up on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, YouTube, Facebook, all the heck with it. go to the name of the show, put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick, Annie. And today, Curtis is not with us today. Instead, we have a special friend of the show that is joining us once again, Florida State Representative Mike Hill. Good afternoon, Mike. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Annie. I'm doing very well. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it sounds like you're a little bit of a cave, but you're doing fine. we can work with it.
Okay, great.
Man, we've got ourselves a really rocking show coming up. After we do our intro and our dedication, we have from the Trump team, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer. People can remember him from blowing the whistle on the lack of investigation leading into 9/11. He is with the Trump team, so he'll be joining us for the first half hour, followed by another friend of ours, Colin Flaherty. He's got a new book out, Don't Make the Black Kids Angry. He does a lot of investigative reporting, but he's got two books out, White Girls Bleed a Lot, and this new one that just came out recently. So we'll be joining with him on this middle part of the show. And at the last part, we'll be having Amy Kremer. People remember her from Tea Party Patriots, Tea Party Express. I met her when she was doing the bus tour with Tea Party Express. Very, very lovely lady. And she has now formed Women for Trump. So we got the Trump train rolling here today, Mike.
It sounds like it's going to be a great show, Annie.
We're going to have a lot of fun. For people that were wondering where I have been the last 2 weeks, I just want to give a little bit of a heads up. I normally take the end of the year to deal with any health issues, so I had to have some surgery on my eyelid, which led to complications. Of course, if anything, Mike, could happen, it ends up happening to me. And I actually had my doctor tell me that.
Oh, no.
Because the antibiotic they gave me caused an activation of a situation called C. diff. It's when your body loses all the bad bacteria in your digestive system, and it's not a comfortable thing to be in. And the antibiotics killed off all of my good bacteria, and I've had a recent bout with that. So I ended up getting really sick again, going into atrial fibrillation because I was dehydrated and my magnesium, my potassium dropped. So after 2 days of being AFib, I cried uncle. I went to the emergency room. And, of course, it's not going to be simple. But I ended up spending 3 days in the hospital. And guess what? I learned, Mike, that they use a sanitary cleaner in their ventilation system, their HVAC system, which I'm allergic to. So for 3 days.
No.
So here I am recovering from eye surgery, and I've got this blowing on my face, and my eyes are like someone took fiberglass and just shoved it in my eyeballs. So yesterday was a round robin of doctors. Everyone finally gave me the final stamp of approval saying, yes, you're okay now. I follow up with my eye doctor on Tuesday, but that was my holiday week, my Christmas to today.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're on the mend, and my goodness, you're such a trooper to be on the radio today.
Oh, man. I got to confess, I did not wake up until 12 o'clock this afternoon. That is how I've been put through the ringer. So I'm surprised that I am even here to tape myself. Anyway, I want to welcome everyone that is listening in, or the night you're here on the Blog Talk Radio chat room. We're also up on Facebook Live. You know, Mike, we start off each and every show with a dedication to a fallen hero. And, you know, it's tough when I have to choose, you know, who to skip over and who to dedicate to. Some situations just hit you as just, I'm trying to find the right word, but tragic. You've got our men and women that go out there to protect and serve, that go out overseas in support of our troops. And you think that you're serving in an area that's safe and calm. You're behind the battle lines. You're not in the line of fire. And some freak thing happens that ends up taking our young men and women. And today's show's dedication is going to two of these individuals. It's going out to Sergeant Holly Belinsky and Specialist Jackson D. Johnson. They were serving in Kuwait during Operation Spartan Shield, and they were killed on March 7th of 2009. And this is coming from several different sources. And the first source is from The Fallen that people can find at Military Times. And it doesn't tell you much, so it made me do a little bit more research. It reads, a pair of soldiers were killed in a non-combat accident, an Army Central Command spokesman confirmed to the Army Times. One of these soldiers was identified as Sergeant Holly Belinsky, 37, whose husband released her name ahead of the Army official statement, and the second was 20-year-old Specialist Jackson Johnson, according to a release from the 184th Theater Sustainment Command. They were killed on March 7th of this year. The soldiers were traveling in North Kuwait when their vehicle collided with a civilian commercial truck. 3 soldiers were medevaced to the U.S. Military Hospital, Kuwait, to be treated for their injuries. Johnson was pronounced dead upon arrival. Belinsky died as a result of her injuries, and the third soldier was injured and is pending medical evacuation from Kuwait. The soldiers were members of the 657th Transport Detachment, an Illinois-based Army Reserve unit, and deployed to Camp Arafajan. The next is from KSDK. And the author of this is Brandon Marino and Doris Almos of the KSDK staff. They were killed in a car crash while serving in Kuwait on Monday, March 7th of this year. Sergeant Holly R. Belinsky and Specialist Jackson D. Johnson made their final trips home. Belinsky was 37 years old. Belinsky's widower said she was a loving mother, beautiful wife, and a dedicated soldier. She left behind 5 children. Sergeant Belinsky was from the small town of Pinckneyville, Illinois. A plane carrying her flag-draped casket arrived at Scott Air Force Base. Belinsky's loved ones shared an emotional moment on the tarmac before military members escorted the casket to a funeral car. Mourners and loved ones and strangers lined Route 127 going into Pinckneyville to show their support for Sergeant Belinsky's final journey home. Dozens of people were out that Sunday, placing flags along the route. Belinsky was one of 2 St. Louis area soldiers killed in the non-combat related incident. Specialist Jackson D. Johnson also died from his injuries. The Hillsborough native was only 20 years old. April and Jason Johnson, Jackson Johnson's parents, described him as a funny, caring, and kind. They said he loved his family, and he left behind 2 siblings. Johnson's parents said he loved being in the Army and was studying to become a sergeant. A plane carrying Specialist Johnson's casket arrived at St. Louis Lambert International Airport. He was laid to rest at Jefferson Barracks. And this is from Fox 2 Now. Belinsky was a wife and mother of 5 children. Her sister, Mindy Sroka, said Holly was devoted to serving in the Army. She joined back in 2009. That was her pride. She loved being in the Army. She loved to protect people, Soroka said. Soroka is still in shock over the tragic loss of her beloved sister. I don't want to believe it. I don't think anyone wants to believe it. No one saw it coming. We all believe she was safe, just doing her job. It's really hard, she said. Tara Kennedy said Johnson, her cousin, was born to be in the Army. She said he's been in the Army Reserves for 3 years and wanted to be the Army to be his career. Kuwait was his first deployment. Kennedy is still trying to comprehend the tragedy. It's still not real. It's still not real. To see pictures and videos, it's difficult, she said. As Kennedy and Soroka grieve, they know their loved ones died doing what they loved. She died a hero, Soroka said. Tara called Jackson a hero as well, saying, "We are a large, loving family, and we all step in and help each other. And this is from thesouthern.com. Even the sun seemed to pay respect to Sergeant Holly R. Belinsky as she was laid to rest. The sun peeked through the clouds until just before funeral services at 10 a.m., when it ducked behind the clouds. Before the service began, Brigadier General Deborah Kutlokic of the 143rd Sustainment Command Expeditionary Force spoke about Belinsky's service. She said that she was representing the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Chief of the Army, General Mark A. Malini. She said Belinsky was integral to her company and was responsible for things like processing personal transfers and pay. She was a leader in every way. She really was not average. She was exceptional, the Brigadier General said. She added that the work Belinsky did earned her the Meritorious Service Medal. The medal is presented by the U.S. Armed Forces to recognize superior and exceptional non-combat service. Flag-folding ceremony also was completed at the beginning of the funeral. Father Jeffrey Effort, a relative of Belinsky's husband Robert Belinsky, said that others referred to her by her rank, but she is called only by her baptismal name in the church to focus on what joins her to the parish and community. The military honor guard that served as pallbearers moved as a unit with great precision. Each step was in unison. The casket of Sergeant Holly Belinsky was loaded into a hearse following the funeral services at St. Bruno's Catholic Church in Pinckneyville. Belinsky was killed in an accident on March 5th in Kuwait. She was buried at St. Bruno's Catholic Cemetery. And then finally, a final note. In honor of Specialist Jackson, a thrift store was renamed and dedicated to him, known as the Jackson's Thrift Store, Jackson's Thrift Store in Deckard. They specialize in the needs of those that serve in the military and law enforcement. They specialize in needs of furniture and winter clothing. The Community Outreach Center helps everyone in need and will not turn anyone away. The store target customers are veterans and emergency personnel, with the proceeds going to help with medical expenses, housing, food, clothing, special classes for emotional support, critical stress, grief, suicide prevention, depression, and anything else they need. Specialist Jackson, even in death, his name helps people to carry on and give. Today's show is dedicated to Sergeant Holly Belinsky and Specialist Jackson D. Johnson. It is also dedicated to all of the brave men and women out there that serve as first responders, be they law enforcement, firefighters, or emergency services. And we also dedicate it to all those brave men and women that serve in our military, from the birth of this great nation through today and into its marvelous future. We dedicate to them this song by Todd Allen Herndon, My Name is America. May God bless each and every one.
Born in the grip of oppression, I fought for my liberty. I paid with the blood of my people. Freedom has never been free. Now my door's always open to dreamers and friends. When I'm attacked, I protect and defend. Because my name is America. I stand proud and free. My name is America. Don't tread on me. brothers gave it to me. They believe in the virtues I stand for, my respect for humanity. Now I'm challenged by tyrants who envy my power, but their vicious deeds become my finest hour, because my name is America. I stand proud and free. My name is America. Don't tread on me. I cannot be broken. I cannot be shamed. If you hurt me, I'll get stronger, and I'll rise up from the flames, and I'll always stand proud and free. I'm America, don't tread on me. America is my name. For those who need me, I'll always be here. For those who will harm me, I'll face without fear. But I'll always stay proud and free. I'm America, don't tread on me. I'm America, yes, America is my name. Is my
All right, and we're back. You're here listening to Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, SHR Media, Lone Star Daily News. Oh, the heck with it. I am not even going to go through the rest of the spiel. I can't even talk today. Oh, man. You can find us just by going to the name of the show, putting a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com. I'm your hostess that's losing the mostest, radio chick Annie, along with my guest co-host, Florida State Representative Mike Hill. Mike, I'm going crazy. I swear I'm going crazy today.
Annie, you've been through a lot lately. Again, I'm just surprised that you're even on the show today. You're such a trooper.
Well, I want to welcome everyone that's showing up in the chat room here on Blog Talk Radio, as well as that people that are joining us at the our watch party over on Facebook. Oh, man. We have so much to talk about. But, you know, we've got to be talking about the impeachment. We've got to talk about Soleimani. And all of a sudden, there's other issues that have just hit the back burner. And we haven't heard anything about the protests going on in Hong Kong. And we know over the Christmas holidays, the police were winging tear gas at the protesters as they were in the mall. No one's talking about anything going on over there. We're not talking about North Korea anymore. And no one is talking about the wildfires that have been going on in Australia since September. I mean, my goodness, if we had wildfires going on in California that were lasting that long, it would be front page at CNN, MSNBC, all these criminal networks would be talking about it. But it's not no pun intended, but it's been sitting on the back burner. You know, Mike, and no one's hearing the truth about this stuff.
Well, it's because we have a media that doesn't want us to know about that, Annie. It's amazing what's going over in Hong Kong right now, where those who are protesting for their freedom are waving American flags, singing American songs, and waving pictures of President Trump. Of course, our leftist-leaning media does not want us to see that here at home. But it is getting out. There are several bloggers who are posting it, and also on YouTube you can find it. But it is exciting times we're living in, Annie.
Absolutely. And, you know, at one point in time, Here in the United States, if I don't know if you go back that far, remembering the birth of Smokey the Bear, because we weren't doing good husbandry on our forest. And good husbandry would be that you go in, you burn out the underbrush to allow healthy tree growth and to prevent forest fires. Somehow or other, these eco-terrorists have stopped us from doing the good husbandry. So you don't find that anymore. Matter of fact, it stopped going on somewhere around in the 90s, because we moved here to South Carolina in 2001. And I'm sure you remember when you had those horrific fires that were along the I-95 corridor, and the smoke from those wildfires that were hitting around, it went all the way past West Palm Beach, all the way up north, almost up to Daytona, and even past that at points. And I remember traveling up and down I-95 when this stuff was going on, because that was when my sister-in-law was dying, and she lived in Plantation. No, actually Sunrise. Sunrise or Plantation, I forget which one now. And we would get the winds and the ashes from those wildfires here in South Carolina. That's how heavy they were. And to think about these 15 million acres in Australia, I mean, that is a little shot in the bucket down there, what happened to you guys. And think of 15 million acres and over 24 people dead. And no one's talking about it. We're sending help, but it still should be as much of a front page item as the final death of a terrorist called Soleimani.
Indeed. And it is a tragedy that we're seeing going on there, Annie. And as you say, what we're finding is these eco-terrorist environmentalists who will not allow the proper maintenance of public lands. I know here in Florida, we still have controlled burns on private lands, but it's harder and harder to have it done on public lands. Not here in Florida, we can still do it, but in other states such as California, we see the disasters that happen there, and we're seeing these disasters in Australia. When God placed man on the earth, he said, maintain it, take care of it, because it can't on its own. And that's why we need to have these controlled burns to make sure these sorts of disasters don't happen.
Yeah, and as Holger mentioned in the chat room here, and which I was just going to, and he jumped me on this one, I was going to mention is that not only the lack of good husbandry on our forest, but they have over 200 Australians have been arrested for arson for contributing to these wildfires, for setting them. So this is not climate change. This is not the climate disaster. This is people doing it to themselves.
That's insane. That's insane, Annie. Why would someone do that unless there is something seriously wrong with their mental capacity? It's just crazy.
It is. It is absolutely crazy. And you would think that this would be something that the news media would talk about. Hey, listen, in order to prevent another tragedy like this, and there's over 24 people have been died, and those include firefighters who burned alive in their truck trying to save lives and homes. And this should be something that we should be talking about. Hey, listen, don't you think we're doing something wrong? We should be taking a step back, taking a look at this. Let's see what's going on in Australia and maybe put something on our books to start with doing the controlled burns again, putting stricter penalties and watch towers out there to prevent arsonists. We're not doing this. This is a prime example of what we should be doing, and the media is more concerned about the impeachment going to the Senate.
Yes. But, something that you mentioned we should be doing more about that should be taken care of at the state level. Of course, exactly. Unless it's federally owned lands, which they own a lot of land out west. But on federally owned lands, you're right, steps should be taken to make sure this sort of disaster doesn't happen here.
Exactly. Because I remember going up and down the I-95 corridor between South Carolina and the Miami area there, and you used to see the watchtowers out there. You don't see them anymore. This is something that maybe Florida State should be looking at. I'm sure that I would be bringing this up with my state representatives because you used to see it up around Francis Marion Park. I saw the last time I went up to Georgetown, there was like only one. These are all things we should be talking about. But Mike, we've got our guest in on the line. Let me bring him aboard. This is where I miss Curtis because he always takes care of what's going on inside the switchboard so I can watch the chat rooms and the screens and everything and not have to be chief cook and bottle washer. But let's bring aboard Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer. Good afternoon, Colonel.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to be on with y'all.
Oh, it is a pleasure. My co-host today is a guest co-host. He is Florida State Representative, if I can get my teeth in straight, Mike Hill. And that's not his title, get teeth in straight. That's my title.
Let's go. I'm sure. It's good to be on, Mike. I'm sure you're much better than our idiot state representatives in Virginia who are about to vote to remove the Second Amendment rights of most of the citizens of Virginia. So good to talk to you.
My goodness, but thank goodness you have several counties who are pushing back on that illegal move that they're doing, that unconstitutional move, and are declaring themselves sanctuary counties, and sheriffs who are saying that we will not comply with this illegal law.
Yeah, right. So full disclosure, I actually am a member of law enforcement in Virginia part-time. I advise Sheriff Dave Decatur of Stafford County. He's one of the sheriffs who worked with his local council, the Stafford County Board of Supervisors, who voted 9-0 to make Stafford County a sanctuary county. So absolutely. And I'm very proud of the sheriffs standing up and saying we're with the people, not with the progressives. So.
Man, that is some crazy stuff I heard when I saw this all passing, and I had spoken about it on the show here, and I saw some new articles coming up that more and more sheriffs are stepping forward, and thank God for that. I don't know. I'm retired NYPD. I don't know if you knew that. I don't know how I would react.
I did not know that, but very excellent.
Thank you. As a matter of fact, mentioning that yesterday was Law Enforcement Recognition Day, and it actually had me in tears. Some people actually saying thank you. I mean, I retired in 96, and since I joined in the 80s to today, I've actually I can count on one hand how many people have actually thanked me, or I've seen anyone thank a law enforcement officer for the job they do.
Well, let me say something about it. God bless you, and thank you for your service, because I work with the NYPD now in my current role. I'm part of the task force. They have the Counterterrorism Bureau runs a task force that allows for the entire Eastern Seaboard to coordinate information for purposes of responding to threats. And NYPD is the backbone. So God bless you. And man, it's NYPD, despite the mayor, is still an amazing organization. So.
Yeah, when he showed up here in South Carolina, up in Orangeburg, I and another retired NYPD cop showed up to protest de Blasio. And it turns out the cop ended up retiring from the same command I did. He was there as I was leaving. He was coming in, but we probably saw each other in the corridor, but didn't know it. And here we go, and we reunite all these years later. And if you do go to one of those meetings and PBA President Patty Lynch is there, give him a personal hello from me, because he's doing a very tremendous job. Yeah, Patty knows me. He knows me. Anyway, we were talking about Virginia, and they're coming up with another set of legislation, I understand, in the House to do an additional. I'm trying to remember now. Was that about the ammunition? Because I know New York State tried that, limiting the number of rounds you could carry to 7. They're doing some crazy stuff in Virginia. That is sure.
I'm in Northern Virginia right now. I'm armed. I'm carrying literally the same load. It's basically the same weapon I carried in combat. I'm carrying a M11A1, which is a modified version of the M11 I carried in combat, with 3 15-round magazines. That's standard. And any law enforcement officer I've worked with carries about a standard load of about the same. So I am very resentful of the idea that bureaucrats who have never been in an environment where they had to carry armed are trying to dictate to me, and others who are retired, like yourself, other members of the military who are not on duty, of what is proper for us. And by the way, as you know, from being a police officer, criminals will never follow the rules. So you're literally disadvantaging those law-abiding citizens who wish to defend themselves in the manner appropriate to their training and ability, rather than dealing with the criminals who should not be armed at all.
Yeah, it's crazy because if you, like a lot of people that also carry a spare clip. So in that case, you would be violating the law because you carry a spare clip. And, even a speed loader, because when I was on duty, we had revolvers. We didn't have the automatics back then. And it was a speed loader.
Right.
So you think about that, that would be I'm sorry, brain fart here, 18 rounds that you would be carrying, which is not a lot, but you would be violating the law just carrying what you were carrying on duty. And this is crazy.
Right.
And it's just driving me absolutely up the wall, But anyway, we're here to talk about, you are on Team Trump. You're helping him as an advisory on his political campaign, and thank you for doing that. Because we're going to have, at the end of the show, we're going to have Amy Kremer on Women for Trump. So this is great. But you also...
Oh, I know Amy. She's very good. Excellent.
Oh, I met Amy when she was with Tea Party Express, and we were doing a Tea Party rally, and my husband had built the stage, and I was one of the founding members of the Tea Party here. And I met her then. She came through a couple of times. And then I saw her when Mark Sanford was running for Congress after he left the governorship. And it's been a while since I've seen her, so it's going to be a lot of fun to talk to her because I haven't talked to her in a couple of years. But you're on Team Trump, and, what we need to do is show the people that are out there supporting Trump, because you guys are taking a heavy hit. You've gotten death threats just simply for supporting him.
Literally. Yes. And I think that's the thing that people tend to not remember is that, yes, I mean, I for those who follow my Twitter feed, I get at least one direct threat per week via either online, it's obvious to the public, or via direct text. And this has happened time and time again. And what's ironic is, these are supposed to be the progressive left, the tolerant left. And yet I have never seen a more vicious, completely unhinged group of individuals attempting to silence political thought and political speech. And I don't know how any American can accept this level of I don't even say dialogue, because it's not a dialogue. It's simply trying to shout down any perspective that the progressives don't like. And it's not acceptable. And I appreciate you and others recognizing that is a very factor in the current political environment.
Well, Trump had his rally in Toledo, Ohio last night, and my husband and I were laughing. It was just so much fun to watch. And you saw the sea of red hats out there. And someone on Fox News was wearing, he was wearing the hat for a few moments. And it said, "It's just a red hat. Get over it." So when you talk about the violence, you wonder about all these people, average citizens, simply walking around with a Trump hat getting beat up.
Well, I think this is where over and over again, we've seen even the so-called violence against the other side was actually prompted by the other side. And this has been a feature of the left. The left has now decided they will accept, and we've seen this on Antifa as well, violence as political speech, as accepted political speech. And I've been voting. My first time voting was in 1980 when I voted for President Reagan. I had just turned 18 and was able to vote. And it's amazing how we've seen the expansion and acceptance by the left of violence as something that they're willing to do. And again, I fault the party leadership, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and all these other candidates who are happy to look the other way and do nothing to hold their side accountable. And it's something that I think is going to get worse over the next 10 months.
Well, I'm not going to...
it actually started before Nancy Pelosi and Schumer. It started under President Obama with the Black Lives Matter movement, which he never once denounced the violence that was coming from them, where they were actually assassinating our law enforcement officers. He never once condemned that. So I say all of this violence began with Obama and is laid at his feet.
Right. Thank you. Let me illustrate what you just said. So I was up in Philadelphia at an Army-Navy game, and I was there to co-host the Fox News coverage. I was able to go in early, and there was a number of black detectives, Philadelphia police, and they were telling me how they hate Black Lives Matter, because what happens, it's not about black, it's about anti-law enforcement. And what would happen, the Black Lives Matter folks would come into town and be completely disruptive, and to the point of where they themselves, as black officers, were targeted by Black Lives Matter. Now, think about that. These people are so vicious that and it's really not about black lives. They should celebrate the fact that the majority of the detectives in the Philadelphia police force are black. But no, they are targets because apparently they're not the right color of black, if I can say something like that.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, there was a clip that was going around recently up on YouTube of 2 New York City police officers, and they were talking to this one black guy, and he just sucker punches the cop. Now, the 2 cops that were there, one was female, the other one was male, were black, but just sucker punches them. And he's got him on the ground. And I won't comment about what went on with the rest of the clip because I was very hypercritical about one of the officers' inability to act. But if anyone has seen it, and you're from law enforcement background, you understand what I'm talking about. But it, like you said, it doesn't matter. You're wearing the uniform. So even though your skin color may be black or Asian or Hispanic, they see you as the enemy. It doesn't matter.
Right. It's amazing. And to your point, I work with the Counterterrorism Bureau. I often spend time with them. They are some of the most amazing folks. And, oh, by the way, a little hint, they're mostly minorities. I mean, it is amazing how diverse the police department in New York is. And I respect these guys. I love anybody who can be friendly and engaging and in 30 seconds be your worst nightmare, because that's their job. The moment you start acting up to break the law, their job is to stop it. And I have been mortified to see, simply put, the social justice warriors who are now armed up, somehow thinking that being disruptive, harming law enforcement, somehow makes them, fighting for a higher good. It's simply the reverse. And this is where, again, I fault the Democrats and the progressives for this complete denial of the reality in which we live.
Yeah, it is. It is
and
amazing.
Would you mind if we shift just a little bit?
Go ahead, please.
It's kind of along the same lines of support for the law of order and for our law enforcement, but it's at a little different level. And Colonel, I would like your input on this.
Sure.
Yesterday, the House of Representatives voted to limit Trump's powers with a war power resolution to take any military action against Iran. And unfortunately, my own Congressman, Matt Gaetz, voted with the Democrats with this resolution. What is your impression on that? What's your take on it?
Well, look, I know Matt, and I respect him, but I don't agree with his vote on this, and here's why. We're not going to war with Iran. The president was operating regarding the assassination of Soleimani within his current authorities given to him under the authorized use of military force. And let me be very clear on this. And this is another reason he had General Milley, Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and General the Chief of Staff of the Army. I'll think of his name in a second, but they were with him because the Soleimani attack was all military. And because Soleimani was traveling in Iraq, and I'm sorry, I can't go into details, but the president said we specifically had credible information, intelligence that he was going to launch. We have very good intelligence on what's going on inside the IRGC. That's about all I can say about it. I was meeting with one of President Trump's former members of his cabinet yesterday on this, and we were talking a little bit about what we know and why we know it. And the strike was based on Soleimani being in Iraq, being physically in Iraq against, by the way, UN resolutions which prohibited him from traveling. He was on the restricted list. He was not allowed to travel, and he was killed incidental to combat operations. That's it. it was done under what we call Title 10, under traditional military activities. Think of it, if you will, whatever George Washington did with the Continental Army, the Army can still do, the military can still do. And this was a legitimate military operation against an individual who had conducted acts of terror as a non-combatant. That is to say, he's a general in the Iranian military who was personally conducted operations which resulted in the murder and death of American service members. Therefore, according to the Geneva Convention, he was an illegitimate combatant, and basically, according to the Geneva Convention, if you have someone doing that, you can conduct a summary execution of them, even if you capture them. So this was, by all legal measures, a completely legitimate hit. And I resent now the Democrats and Matt for whatever strange reason saying, oh, you need to come to us for permission regarding Iran. No, he was conducting military operations. And yes, of course, if we ever decide to go to war against Iran, I would expect the president to go to Congress and say, I want to do a declaration of war against Iran. But nobody wants war. The Iranians have already backed down. And, Nancy Pelosi, I call her Vodka Nancy, is already kind of off doing her own bar openings like she was the other night during the attack. So,
there's a lot of things you said in there, Tony, and you wrote an excellent article. Let me pull it up over here. That was in Real Clear Politics just recently that you wrote. It's titled, I Faced Soleimani's Forces. Dems are mourning a war criminal. Want to add that Soleimani was in uniform when he was in Iraq, which is also a violation of the UN resolution. So he was an enemy combatant in a field of battle, prime target for anyone to take him out. He's been an enemy of the United States for 40 years. And the Quds forces were declared a terrorist organization more than 10 years ago. The other forces that he also commands was also labeled as a terrorist organization. He has the blood of over, I've heard different figures, somewhere anywhere from 600 to 700 American service men and women on his hands. He's directly involved in their deaths by having them help plant the IADs, giving them the funds and the equipment and everything else. On the civilian side, I've heard upwards over 1 million civilians, Iranian civilians and civilians around the world, have died because of his direct actions. Now, I had posted something up onto Facebook about Soros's MoveOn.org movement to no war with Iran hashtag. And with my own family member put something up there criticizing the fact that Trump took Soleimani out. And I said, so taking out one proclaimed terrorist, saving thousands, maybe millions of lives is a bad thing? Tell me how.
Oh, that's your point is well taken. And recently he was involved in arresting about 12,000 people in Iran who are part of the Green movement, of their own democracy movement. So no, this man is not and plus the background regarding my article, my editorial, just to give you kind of a sense of why I wrote it. By the way, this is in my book, Operation Darkheart. Our special forces had captured incidental to military operations in Iranian, and they captured him in what was notable in eastern Afghanistan. Eastern Afghanistan is on the border with Pakistan. So this guy traveled through Herat, which is on the border with Iran on the western side, all the way over. And basically the FBI, an FBI agent and I, spent 3 days interrogating the individual, and we broke him. We didn't torture him, just saying, and finally got him to admit that he was working for the IRGC, for the Quds Force. He had brought over $65,000, and that money was going to be spent on funding insurgency against us. Again, that was money to be spent to kill Americans. And this was, let me give you the date, September 2003. So the Iranians, right after we went into Afghanistan, were already, and by the way, I was told by one of my sources that Soleimani was personally involved in directing those operations. He was involved in working to establish the insurgency and terrorists to kill Americans in Afghanistan. So that's why I wrote that article, that we've actually been facing this guy in a direct way, that we've not been able to reach out and touch him until now. And by the way, it is true despite the denials. Both the Bush 43, and I know this for a fact because I talked to one of the guys involved, and the Obama White House both had shots at either killing or capturing Soleimani in Iraq, and we chose not to do that.
All right. Well, we've got a couple of questions in the chat room popping up, but we also have a caller in the line, a friend of the show, Cool Mike. Cool Mike, you have a question for Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer?
Yeah, I actually just have a question I want to throw out for all three of you. How is it, since the show even started, less than an hour ago, seems like 15 different anti-Trump or new impeachment reasons to hate Trump come out. My first question is, how is it that out of nowhere, this absolutely horrible terrorist, who we haven't even scratched the surface on what just a miserable human being he is, how is it you can have 40 million Democrats worshiping him and crying at his funeral as if they were their next of kin? And secondly, once Trump is reelected, do any of you feel Trump is going to really, in full force, just absolutely positively start an aggressive campaign, or is he kind of just going to continue, maintaining the positiveness and let the, economy grow, et cetera, et cetera?
Mike,
that was it.
Tony.
Yeah, well, to the first question regarding the Never Trumpers and the Democrats jumping aboard to attack, I think this is any opportunity to include, Pete Buttigieg. It actually blamed the president for the Iranians shooting down the airliner. That's insane. The Iranians chose to fire on a civilian airliner and kill people. That's it. That's the fact. And yet somehow, because the Iranians are aggressive, it's our fault. This is the progressive left, and unfortunately, I don't see it changing. I see it, again, getting worse. Regarding the economics, look, there's two factors which I think the president's trying to balance here. First, while we are now the largest producer of oil on the planet, which is wonderful, makes us independent of the needs of the Middle East, to include the Saudis and the Iranians, there's still a world economy. And the last thing the president wants to do is jeopardize the economy of our allies or even our challengers, China. China is hugely dependent, completely dependent on Middle Eastern oil, to the point of where any given time they've got about 3 weeks of oil on hand. If you want to crash the Chinese economy, you shut off the oil. The president doesn't want to do that. He's actually trying to make a deal with the Chinese. So I think we're going to try to do a balance. And the second factor goes back to the fact that there is a robust but very much oppressed democracy movement inside of Iran. And the president's made it clear, and as I have and others, the Persians, the Iranian people are not our enemy. Our enemy is the theocracy, this very rigid theocracy driven by 10th century thinking, literally 10th century thinking, regarding the Shia. They are the Shia sect of the Muslim faith, and their big enemy is the Saudis, the Sunni. So the last thing we want to do is get in the middle of that. At the same time, we want to make it very clear we want to support the people of Iran, Persians, throwing off the yoke of this very oppressive 10th century theocracy, which literally is trying to force them to live in the 10th century. So that's what the president's faced with, and I think it's a very delicate balance to try to manage all of this at the same time saying we will not accept Iranian aggression. And I think that's what President Trump did by killing Soleimani, is saying, the days of us appeasing you is over. And while we're sensitive to these economic issues and the issues of your people, they're not going to be trifled with.
Well, we've got a question in the chat room, something that I wanted to ask you also. I haven't even scratched the surface of all the subjects I wrote down to talk to you about, like the increase in small business jobs of about 7.5 million under the Trump administration, the strengthening of the equipment going to the military, which also strengthens the morale of the military. But going back to Soleimani and watching the news broadcasts, mostly on Fox, which had basically the only one telling half the truth on it. But I think we can tie Soleimani into the 1979 attack on our embassy and the taking of the hostages. I would say we could we know that he was involved in Benghazi. And I would probably say we probably can link him to the USS Cole, which no one is mentioning, or the taking down, the bombing of the Marine barracks in Saudi Arabia, where my ex-husband who is a former Marine, and I lost a friend. He had just transferred out of the 1st Battalion in Garden City, New York, thinking he was going to have a nice, easy tour in Saudi Arabia, and ends up dead. And there's several other, terrorist attacks that we can tie him to. Can we tie him to the 79 uprising?
So he's been, as you pointed out, in service for since 1979. And so every terror incident you can think of that where the Hezbollah or the Iranians were behind, I'm sure Soleimani was part of. I mean, this guy, he wasn't just a recruit. He was an enthusiastic leader in the cause. So I was talking to former Congressman Kurt Weldon this last weekend. He wrote a book called Countdown to Terror. I recommend people check it out. He had his own network reporting on activities inside of Iran. And according to Kurt, and I think you'll see more in this in the media as time develops, there are documents which do indicate Soleimani was linked to pretty much everything you're talking about. So as I've said before, this guy, Soleimani, was essentially like a Bond villain without the Bond women. And he truly was evil. He was truly committed to conducting acts of terror as a method of military use within the IRGC and the Quds Force, and he deserved what he got.
And that's a huge amen on that one. Absolutely. And the Quds Forces is part of the Revolutionary Guard, correct?
Right. They are the black ops element of the Revolutionary Guard, yes. Unconventional warfare.
Yeah. There's, like I said, there's so much more to talk about. I mean, we kind of got a little off track when I was mentioning Law Enforcement Day yesterday, because it is true that, you're on the Trump 2020 Advisory Board, but jobs are at a record number. We haven't seen figures like this since 1965. And in just 3 years, small businesses, which are the majority employer here in the United States. I've been a small business employer. Without the small businesses, there would be no jobs. You would not be able to have these big box stores because we need them in order for the small business to survive. Right. Believe it or not, there is a dichotomy between the two of them. And it's 7.5 million jobs in the small business. And what I found amazing, that the unemployment number between men and women, normally you see women with a higher unemployment number than men, is the first time I have ever seen it equal at 3.6%. That is a really low number. And that's a phenomenal thing to achieve under this president.
One of my colleagues on Trump 2020 is Steve Moore. Steve is an economics guy. And we've done several talks together where we talk about the fact that the president has seen national security and the economy linked completely together. And so what has been happening is he's reduced and eliminated restrictions regarding regulation. He's like just taking, a sword and cutting through these things, making it easier for people to organize businesses, and then cutting taxes and allowing for the innovation and creativity of the American people, of businessmen and women, to flourish. That's what's going on. And this was all being suppressed, and I would argue being suppressed purposely by the last administration because they wanted this one world, that's why I support Brexit and the British. The British were essentially being forced to essentially subordinate themselves to a larger European Union where their own internal capabilities are being suppressed as well. And I think that's the key, is that the president is trusting the American people with their own money, with their own innovation, to be able to come back and do those things we know they're capable of. And that's why you're seeing this renaissance of manufacturing. And again, since we're a net producer of oil, the biggest in the world, I see us going back to be a major manufacturer, where our goods and services are going to be desired and coveted by countries overseas. And this is what we want.
Absolutely. And I had mentioned the build-up to the military of equipment. But at one point here in Ohio, Trump mentioned at the rally that the only tank plant in the United States manufacturing for our military was getting ready to close down. He's got it reopened, and he's got the Abrams being spit out like shells from a peanut, and we've got more planes, because I live right smack in the heart of the Tri-Command here in Beaufort, where I got the Marine Corps Air Station a couple of miles down the road one way, Paris Island Depot on the other way, and I've got the Naval Hospital here. You know, the morale that you see picking up with these men and women, with the stuff going on, with the new planes coming out, because you had people flying the same plane their grandfather flew into combat. And it's crazy. Now we're getting the upgrades to the F-35s finally being done. You know, he has done so much, not just for the American population, but for the military that we rely on to defend us, in so much as giving you choice of medical care instead of being restricted to just the VA. The military veterans have choice. This is something that we've been fighting for years. And there goes the sound of freedom.
VA secretary over that point. I was part of that issue. The VA secretary was refusing to allow choice, which was completely insane. But it speaks to the two facts. First, the president is going to keep his word. He is keeping his word. It's tough, but he's doing it. And I'm here to say, because I talked to his guys, I talked to one ambassador today, 2 former generals, 1 member of the cabinet today, all on different issues. And I'm here to tell you the people he's put in place and will continue to put in place are going to serve the interests of the American people, not of a political belief like the Democrats seem to be completely focused on, and not on somehow that there's a new norm that we cannot be successful as a country. America first doesn't mean America only. It means we lead by example, and we stimulate the world to be all it can be.
Well, I had to mute myself for a second because the sounds of freedom were just flying overhead. The Marine Corps Air Station had to close down their main runway to repave it and everything. So it's now being rerouted over my house. But it's the sound of freedom, and every time I hear those planes overhead, whether or not the C-130s or the F-18s or the F-35s, sometimes my husband and I will walk outside, look up at the sky, and watch our guys and gals out there. Tony, it has been a pleasure, and I welcome you back to the show. I mean, Gabrielle has been sending me you guys every single Friday to talk about Trump, talk about his campaign, and talk about your issues. People can find you where?
Have me back anytime. I'm available, and people can check out what I'm doing I run a think tank, London Center, londоncenter.org. I try to keep a sense of what I'm doing on Twitter, so people can follow me on Twitter, and you'll see, we'll be doing a lot over the next 10 months to help the president get reelected.
Well, God bless you. Thank you for your service to the country, and just enjoy this new year, because we're looking into the roaring 20s, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
All right, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, good luck and God bless, sir. And we've got our next guest up with us, Mike, already, a friend of the show always. He's got a new book out that is titled, and make sure I don't screw this up anymore, Don't Make the Black Kids Angry, The Hoax of Black Victimization and Those Who Enable It, Colin Flaherty. Good afternoon, Colin, and welcome back. And I'm sorry I haven't had you back as often as I should. Shame on me.
Yeah, shame on you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, you didn't tell me.
Annie, let me interject, please. I'm sorry, but Annie, I do have to go, and I wanted to make you aware that you'll be hosting the show without me moving forward, and please accept my apologies for that.
Oh, no problem, Mike. Let everyone know out there that my guest host for the first part of the show was Florida State Representative, out of his busy schedule, Mike Hill. Mike, thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you, Annie. Amen. Bye.
All right. So now, Colin, I am flying solo, just you and I, baby doll. Just you and I.
So what happened to Mike? Did Mike have a suddenly scheduled appointment, or was he just scared to death to talk about this topic? You tell me.
The gauntlet is thrown. No, Cool Mike is still on the line, but he stopped being my co-host a couple of years back. I now have Curtis C.S. Bennett. He's an author of, believe it or not, 24 going on 20, I think it's 25 books, one of which is probably being made soon into a movie. So, but Cool Mike is still with us. Mike, if you want to hang out, stay with us. I got your mic open.
Hey, I got fired as her co-host when I tried to organize a union for the show, and Annie terminated.
Oh, man. You know, Colin, we were talking with Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer about yesterday being Law Enforcement Day, and you're right about a lot of the violence that is not being reported in the media. And one of those things that I would love to see you do a book is the violence on cops.
Well, we do a lot of violence. We do a lot of stories, a lot of my material in books. And it comes from cops, and B, it's about cops. And let me tell you, readers, what I write about. I write about black crime and violence wildly out of proportion. That's half of it. And the other half is how so many people are caught up in denial of deceit and delusion about it. They make it really a lot more dangerous. I got so much material from cops, because cops are the tip of the spear, of course. They see this violence directed at them. It's not just violence. It's scorn, harassment, threats, violence, murder. And cops, the scales are off their eyes. They know we have a big problem in this country. They know if they talk about it, they'll get fired. But a lot of them can't wait for that day they retire when they can talk about it.
You know, it's really weird because I remember my first foot post in a drug-infested area, which was the first day out of the police academy. And the way I was approached, it didn't matter the fact that I was a female. I was a cop there. And some of the stuff they would try, and of course, I was a little older than most of the rookies coming out of there, so I was a little bit more streetwise. But I remember at one point in the 7-7 precinct, this guy came up with a pit bull. And obviously he had trained this pit bull to attack. And I very simply said, the closer you come, the further my gun is going to come out of the holster. But you can't do that today. I would probably be fired today if I were to do that, because I then threatened an individual and I threatened to harm an animal. But he was going to use that animal as a weapon against me. So today's law enforcement are under a different set of rules and standards than what we knew back in the 80s and 90s. The society has forced a change on the mentality of the officers in the street and are killing the morale.
And we can see the consequence. Now, I know that, I'm just going to talk for the benefit of your listeners, not for your benefit, because I know that you know all this. But now we see in cities, in newspapers all over the country, big cities, every city's running the same story. We can't keep our veteran cops, and B, we can't get new cops. It's because cops know on the street their own bosses are not going to have their back anymore.
All right, Colin, you're breaking up. You're breaking up. Are you on a cell phone or something like that?
Okay, I'm okay. How about now?
Oh, that's a lot better. A lot better.
How about now?
That's good.
Okay. So cops know that their bosses are not going to have their backs. They know that on the street the level of harassment, threats, violence, even murder is going up. Cops, as you know, a lot of people don't. I don't know if people know this. Cops are just, they're just 9-to-5 guys and gals. They just want to go home at the end of the day and see their family. And there's a lot of people would be quite happy not to see that happen. Now they're telling cops which laws to enforce, which ones to ignore. Everybody's blaming everything on the cops. I mean, you've probably been following this business in New York City where they're doing the no cash bail. Now today they just let a guy out of jail who assaulted a cop on no cash bail. For some reason they twisted it around to make it seem like assaulting a cop is not a violent crime now.
Yeah, there was a video that was circulating just last week of 2 NYPD officers, one male, one female, and the male cop was sucker punched. And the perp is on top of him, belting him, and she's hitting him with her baton. I'm not going to comment on too much about that, but the fact that he was sucker punched, he was being beaten, the cop was being beaten, and that guy...
Yeah, it's all on video, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all on video. He was arrested, and no sooner was the paper done and filed, he was out on that no bail. And oh, by the way, not only you don't have to pay bail, but here's some free movie tickets. Here's some free tickets to a concert or to a game. And do we need to pay anything for you? We're going to trust you to show up at your hearing. Yeah, right. And hell will freeze over first.
And so here's where I find that public officials and that newspaper people fall down when we talk about this exact thing. So reporters will call this bail reform as part of criminal justice reform. And the underpinning of criminal justice reform is the idea that there are too many black people in prison for no reason whatsoever except for white racism. It's all about black victimization, white racism. That's the underpinning of the whole enterprise. And so the buzz in New York is, well, this must have been a mistake. This law that's letting all these hardened criminal, violent felons back on the streets, no bail, they're releasing them from jail and not putting in jail other guys who are being booked. They're going, well, it must be a mistake. So today's paper, they went to the Speaker of the New York State Assembly. He is a black Democrat. They go, hey, is this a mistake? He goes, no, this is the way we wanted it. We don't want people in jail anymore. We don't want to incarcerate people. We're not going to arrest our way out of this mess. It's just not fair to black people. That's a tough, but here's the plain fact. Black crime and violence is wildly out of proportion. When you say that, people freak out, but it's a plain fact. I don't really care about what reason there is for it. I don't care about what the causes are, the solutions are. I'm just telling you, that's a plain fact. Every cop in America knows that.
And it is an absolute shame. And consequently, when you cannot get good quality people to apply for law enforcement, you're going to have to go and recruit from the dregs of society. And when I retired, my ex-partner was in the recruiting office. She would be interviewing future cops. And she says they came in with arrest records, convictions, misdemeanors, but now they were being forced to accept applications from people that committed felonies. You've got
I
Fox
just did a podcast.
watching the henhouse. Yeah.
I just did a podcast on this today based on a letter from a cop who says the exact same thing. He talks about how, all the standards are going down, whether your standards for your mental fitness, your mental acuity, your personal background, your bankruptcies, your felonies, your drug use. I mean, out in L.A., they used to say, okay, you can't have any gang tattoos. And now they say, well, you can't have any if you got them in the last 3 years. And they say, well, but about neck tattoos? Well, no, they're not allowed either unless you've gotten them more than 3 years ago. So what you said is 100% correct. They're really dropping the standards to get more black people of color on the police department. Now, all of a sudden, all around the country, we're seeing police getting involved in things they never got involved in before. Example, yesterday in Detroit, a black woman, a cop in Detroit, was convicted for running out of a restaurant on a $500 bill. This was all on video. She and 9 of her buddies and 4 kids go into a Japanese hibachi restaurant in Detroit. And they're just sitting there eating and taking their time and having a party. They ask for separate checks, 5 separate checks for 5 parties, all the same place. They all just get up and walk out. That was her. And you just don't see, you see a lot of cops doing a lot of trivial things now that you didn't used to see cops do. I'm not saying cops were ever angels. Matter of fact, I don't have to tell you this. You put cops in these incredible environments. Yeah, well, some people kind of hurts them a little bit, but we're seeing a lot of crazy stuff out there because of these lowered standards.
Well, it used to be less than 1% of a police force you would find, if you're talking about like a large urban area, less than 1% would you find any form of corruption. But now, because you're lowering the standards, you're seeing more and more of it occur. I mean, in the 10 years I was assigned to this one command, I recall only 3 individuals ever, having to face a criminal penalty for what they have done over a 10-year period. 3, and that command had 235 people in it. 235 officers assigned to it. That's a very low number. But that number is now increasing. I mean, in the local police force where I work, where I live here now, I'm seeing a higher instance of this occurring now. Domestic violence, sexual misconduct, things like that we would not see. And now, because you lower the standard, you're getting someone that doesn't have the mental and physical discipline they should have, that have gotten away with criminal activity. So now they're saying, well, now because I have a misdemeanor or felony, you're going to forgive me and let me become a law enforcement officer. No, that's not the way it should be working. Education requirements have been dropped also. It used to be you had to have a 2 or 4 year degree, depending upon which department you were going into, or at least 2 years military service, meaning you had some discipline and training. But that's no longer required. And when you drop the standards, you're not going to have a crime-free neighborhood. You're inviting crime in.
We see that every day now.
And it's a shame. It's an honorable profession that is being destroyed from within by our own political apparatus. And we have to lay it completely on the laps of the progressive left. Instead of using merit, they want to use, I don't know what the word for it is, social justice.
You know what the word, you know what the word is, you're just trying to figure out how to say it. They're very explicitly saying, we want more black people on our departments. That way we can have, there's a big story just 2 days ago out of Columbus, Ohio. Their big story guy go, well, we can't find black people to be cops in Columbus, Ohio, so we're doing this, we're doing that, and, it's our fault because our process is too long, and the cops all over the country were writing me a letter saying, no, everything they said is a big lie. They can't get cops in Columbus because nobody's passing even their minimal tests in Columbus. I mean, they're desperate for black cops all over the country, but their only solution left is just to remove every single barrier to entry and just deploy and hope for the best.
When I joined NYPD, the requirement.
Did you spend any time? Did you spend any time in Brooklyn when you were on the force?
Oh, Brooklyn, yes. Yes, I was in the Bushwick-Williamsburg area, which has Lee Avenue and the Hasidim community. I tap danced down Lee Avenue singing Tea for Two with my partner.
I've probably done more stories about black on Jewish violence in Williamsburg that's a hot topic now than anybody. I've been doing these stories for years. The enormous level of black hostility and violence directed at Jewish people. And then I also document that. Then I document how the politicians up there just do not want any part. And a lot of the Jewish leaders don't want any part of this either. They just don't want to say where the violence is coming from. They just, finally they're starting to, but it's weird to me.
Well, it's.
But here's why that's important.
Okay. Because I want to give you a little background
too. Here's why that's important. Yeah, I'm eager to hear because if you turn on the New York stations, they're not any different than any other TV stations around the country. If you get a black person with a Black Lives Matter sign standing on a corner at midnight, you're going to have 4 local network affiliates airing that person's grievance fully. But then you have this systematic hundreds and hundreds of examples of black on Jewish violence in Williamsburg, and everybody pretends that this incredible pattern has no meaning when it has an enormous amount of meaning, and that's what I expose in my books and in my podcasts. I'm sorry, I wanted to hear what you were saying about Williamsburg.
All right. Well, it goes back decades. It's not something that's been new. It's a culture clash, basically, is what it is. Where you have the Jewish people, the Hasidim, which is a Orthodox sect of Judaism. They dress differently. They approach things differently. They're different. And because they're different and they're not the same as you, they have to be excised. They would go into a community and they would go into decimated communities, pick up the properties, clean them up, and make them habitable and profitable. So that means tax rates will go up. You'll probably have, a better and cleaner neighborhood. But because they did that, they're encroaching on our neighborhood. What gives them the right to come here? That attitude has to stop. You have to learn how to work together, and they have just never learned how to work together. We had the riots in the 80s up along Eastern Parkway.
You say that hold on. Who never learned to work together?
Both communities. You have the problems where you have some of those
here's
orthodox that say.
So here's the thing. Here's what you made. You just made a classic, beautifully stated thing that everybody says. Black people are attacking Jewish people in Williamsburg. It's not the other way around.
Exactly.
And in communities all over the New York region. And so we can't just draw this moral equivalence and say, well, you guys got to learn to get along. When you came upon an assault, when you were on the job and you saw 5 fellas beating the crap out of an old lady, did you walk up to them and go, hey, people, we got to just learn to get along? Or did you say, hey, somebody here is a perp and somebody here is a victim? Confusing the two is probably one of the craziest things of our age. And guess what? I'm actually surprised to hear it coming from you.
No, let me clarify, though. Let me clarify, because I've been in some of those community meetings. I said there is a section of the community that would refuse to work with each other. I didn't say the whole entire community. I said there are sections in the community that will make it difficult for them to work together. Because I have seen it where a black guy will walk down Lee Avenue. He may be walking alone. He may be working in one of the storefronts there, but you will see a group of Hasidic men all of a sudden surround him, and it's like, all right, what are you doing here? And questioning and harassing him. And then you have to show up and go, wait a minute, guys, he works here. Let's introduce him to you.
I've seen hundreds and hundreds of videos, hundreds of black on Jewish violence, but I've never seen one video or one story about what you just described. Not even one.
I've driven up them.
Am I missing something?
No, I've driven up them, but then we didn't have cameras like we had today. Most people didn't even have a cell phone back then. You had the heavy, clunky video cameras that not a lot of people had anyway. But these are jobs that I know that we drove up on. And you turn around and say, no. This guy works over here, so you know him now. So when he goes up and down the street, don't bother him. But then you have the opposite where they go in, as you said, into like Eastern Parkway, something like that. We had the major race riots because one guy accidentally struck a kid. The kid got hurt. And next thing you know, it's mob violence, black on Jewish, which turned into major riots, black on Jewish. I've seen both sides of it, where you're not going to see the violence coming from the Jewish community, but they also have to learn that if you have someone that is working with your community, let them be. Let them be. And maybe because that one person is being treated well, you may gain some better attitude from the black community, who may then turn around and say to their sons and daughters, don't beat them up, leave them alone.
If only we're nice to the people who hate us and beat us up, they'll like us. Hey, you know what? When I lived in Southern California, I used to drive to Vegas all the time. I've seen snow in the desert. So I've seen both sides of that too. But I don't try to pretend that they're equal.
Oh, no, I'm not saying they're equal.
They're not equal.
No, I am not.
No, I'm just telling you, this is what I come across every day in the media in New York, that people are trying to pretend there's something else happening other than what is happening. People in Williamsburg and New Jersey and outside, they're just trying to take care of their own business, and they get nothing but scorn, harassment, and violence.
Exactly. You are right. But what I was doing is I was laying it on the black community leaders. I'm saying, listen, they want you to come to work with them. Tell your people, stop this. This violence has to stop. I'm laying it on the leadership of the black community, on the parents of these kids that are doing the crime. I'm laying it directly on their feet, saying, hey, listen, these people have the right to coexist with you. Your kids are causing these problems. Get them under control is basically what I'm trying to say.
We had a school board member in New Jersey, what's the town where the big shooting was? 2 weeks ago, across from Manhattan.
I was going to say Teterboro. No, I'm looking at the map in my head.
What's that town? New Jersey, blah, blah, blah. I've been there.
I know. My mother's from Jersey.
So there's a school board member. Okay, so people will remember that two black people with high-powered weapons went in there and killed some Jewish people and a cop and other people in that Jewish grocery store in that town that is a chocolate city where Jewish people are moving in.
Was that Trenton?
So anyway, about a week after the shooting, what's that?
Was it Trenton?
No. I'm talking about this happened 2 weeks ago, but it's right across Manhattan. What's the closest town? It's up near Hoboken. What's the closest town to Manhattan in New Jersey across the river there?
I'm thinking Teaneck. I know as soon as you come across the bridge, it's Perth Amboy. I'm running through the map in my head. Oh, I'm brain fart.
Okay. Anyway, not important. Probably we're the only two people listening to this who don't know the name of the town. Anyway, just a week after that shooting, the school board member, a black school board member in that town, comes out and says, yeah, she understands why those black people killed those Jewish people, because Jewish people, they're always going around their town trying to buy people's houses for more money than they're worth. And that somehow is a crime. That somehow turned into a bad thing that, the only punishment for that is capital punishment. I'm telling you, the level of black on Jewish hatred is enormous in a lot of popular culture too.
Colin, if you remember at the start of this conversation, I said a lot of the animosity is because they would go into decimated neighborhoods, buy up the properties, clean them up, make the neighborhood safer, and for some reason, they're bad for doing that. I said that at the start of this conversation.
Yeah, well, I know it's not a complicated problem. The black people see Jewish people in their hoods, and they don't like them. They're violent towards them. They're hostile. This is something we see on video now. And, I really don't care what the causes and solutions are. I just know that there's a lot of bad business going on, and somehow because the folks involved are black, they seem to get a pass. That's what I do in my books and my podcast. I don't give anybody a pass. I expose this as the greatest lie of our generation. Black victimization, white racism. And this stuff happening in New York, to me, is such a picture-perfect example of stuff that's happening all over the country, not just to Jewish people, but to white people, and how people are in such denial, deceit, and delusion about it.
Yeah, it's a lot of problems out there the media is not talking about. Only in the off-the-shelf media like this show and like your show is anyone really talking about it. And it's shows like this that exposed originally Fast and Furious before mainstream media picked it up. So I guess the more we talk about it and the more our listeners spread the word about shows like ours, the word will not get out and mainstream media will not pay attention unless we keep on pursuing this. And it's important that your books are being read.
Some of the stuff sometimes it's so intense, it's so crazy. It just exceeds the ability of local reporters to pay a denial, delusion about it. So that's what's going on with this black on Jewish stuff right now in Williamsburg and all around the New York region. And there was 2 weeks ago, it was kind of like an earthquake as far as I was concerned. It was Sunday morning, and now Bill Hopkins, he's a Jewish, used to be a member of the State Assembly in New York. Now he's kind of a self-appointed Jewish leader in that area. He went on Fox.
Oh, you're breaking up again, Colin. There's a lot of interference.
Yeah, I'm speaking directly into my phone. How about now?
All right. You're probably walking around, so that's probably why the signal's going in.
No, I'm sitting still.
Uh-oh.
Still, right here.
All right. Then the trolls are out there.
If the signal's not good, we can pick this up next week or something. He actually, even the Jewish leaders in New York are hesitant to call it what it is. They're terrified to call it what it is. And last week, he even said, listen, I hate to say this, but it's black people doing this. And then he proceeded to shift the blame over to de Blasio, and he blamed de Blasio for all the black on Jewish violence. So I don't know why we can't just look at this in the eye and go, hey, we got a real big problem in this country with black violence and in lots and lots of different areas. And, that's what I do. I expose this every day.
Yeah, we also see a rising in violence against Asians. There's a clip that's been going around about this woman with a couple of kids. Her brother is facing trial right now. He's under trial right now, and the judge rightfully closed the courtroom to cameras and spectators to not get even a more stressful situation. But here she's in tears crying, "Oh, my brother's up there for murder. Why'd they throw such a hard charge against him?" A 34-year-old Asian man had his laptop ripped out of his hand by 3 black guys, and he chases them down. They run him over and kill him. It's all caught on videotape. The police are not releasing the videotape to the public because it's part of the trial and the investigation, and rightly so. Once it's over, then release it and say, but here she's, because he's black is the only reason why they gave him the hardest charge. Excuse me? Your brother just killed this innocent man for a stupid laptop. And, by the way, he's not black, he's Asian.
About a month ago, or 2 months ago, in the New York Times, they had a big commentary from a black woman who wrote a book called White History of the World, or something like that. And she wrote this huge commentary over something that she said happened in central New Jersey. At a football game, a couple of black girls said a couple of guys from India, parents were from India, these girls said these guys urinated on them at a football game. And so the writer for this commentary, this is in the main section of the New York Times, she was talking about this, and she said, even though the people involved are Indian, this is really an example of white supremacy because white people go around the country doing that all the time anyway, which is not true. Anyway, 2 weeks later, it turns out that was all hoax. Never happened. New York Times never took it back. But we see black on Asian violence. If you put in people from India as Asian, enormous amount of black on Asian violence in this country. I've done hundreds of stories about that, whether it's the small shopkeeper, whether it's the Indian family with gold in their house. Enormous amount of that. Everybody thinks they're successful, and they won't fight back. They are, there's a big article in the San Francisco paper a couple of years ago called San Francisco's Dirty Little Secret, Black on Asian Violence. They did a survey of like 400 or 500 of the most recent street robberies in San Francisco. They found 80% of them were black on Asian. They went to some Asian community leaders and they said, hey, are you surprised? They go, no, everybody in San Francisco knows this. So if you go to all these newspapers, say the top 25 newspapers in the country, you put in the word black or Asians being targeted, you will see several stories about how Asian people are being targeted all over the country for violence and for robbery and murder. There's a song on YouTube. You can your listeners can look it up. It's by a guy named YG. It's called Meet the Flockers. It's a song that gives you a step-by-step instruction how to do a home invasion on an Asian person. An Asian house. Last time I checked, that YouTube video had 12 million views. But yeah, we're all over this black on Asian stuff.
Yeah, it is a shame, and the media's not picking it up. Our justice system is letting it slide. There's videos that you have up on your page on The Mind, which is a new social network out there, that you have video after video examples of this one, and no one's talking about these flash robbery mobs. We had the knockout game, which we thought was finally over with, but it's now back again with a vengeance. That's starting back up again, and now the latest is these flash robbery mobs, where they'll go into a small mom and pop shop or an Asian-owned candy store or something like that, and just wreck the place apart and steal whatever they choose. They're caught on video, but you don't see any arrests made. You see them walking around without their hoodie up, their face fully exposed, so why aren't these kids behind bars? Oh, that's right. It's the black community, they're angry, they're upset. Well, we got to talk to them about what they're upset and angry about and try to fix it. We can't penalize these kids. Like New York City says, we don't want to put them behind bars. Like the state representative, the Speaker of the House in New York State. Oh, no, we don't want anyone behind bars anymore. You can't, it's our upbringing. Because we were born black, you have to give us a break. No. You bleed red the same way that I do. You get the same justice I do. If I committed that, I'd be behind bars. It's equal under the eyes of the law. It's not a special law for you. It's not a special law for me. My rant for the day.
I got to keep that. I'm glad. That was good. I'm glad you mentioned that computer case out in Oakland. That happens in that area a couple hundred times a year. Exactly the same thing. People just go into a coffee shop, they snatch a computer, out they go into a waiting car. And a couple times people have died. But when this one happened at a Starbucks. What I was waiting for was Starbucks to shut down every Starbucks in America so they could have sensitivity training to teach people how to deal with black crime in Starbucks. Much the same way they closed down their entire chain when those two black guys about a year or so ago refused to order anything or leave a Starbucks. And Starbucks stopped the world for that, but nobody seems to care about this.
Oh, no. And now Starbucks is saying you have to allow the homeless to come in, even if they don't buy anything. You let them use the same restroom our paying customers are using. Instead of dealing with the homeless problem. No. Let them come in. And what is this? What is it? Is it? Oh God! Is it Amazon? It's one of these major feel-good, social justice, major corporations, but they want to open up their lobby and a part of their corporate offices for the homeless.
Yeah, where did I hear that? I forget what that was.
Yeah, that was something that was just flashing across the internet last night. And I caught that, and I should have printed it out, and I didn't.
Every time somebody comes up with an idea like that, and it's amazing how many social justice warriors there are at the highest levels of corporate America. And these ideas are very difficult to oppose because nobody wants to be the bad guy. But it's amazing every once in a while somebody will say, hey, do you really want, to kill our customers with having 8 million homeless people in our lobby from now to wherever? Is that going to be a good business decision? And I think the people at Starbucks are figuring that out right now. If they just, they're making their little stores like come on, come off for anybody, whether they buy coffee or not. Well, your customers are ultimately going to have the final say in that.
Well, you've got California and New York are bleeding. Business owners, they're bleeding retirees, they're leaving because the taxes have gotten too high. The homelessness situation, because the taxes are too high, housing is too costly, food is too costly, the increase in drug addiction, because what else do you have to ease your pain? Drugs. Now you can't even walk down the street without having to walk around needles discarded on the sidewalk, feces and urine all over the place, people tented out in the middle of the sidewalk, blocking doorways to stores. And so now they're bleeding all these businesses. So what's one California town want to do? I think it was San Francisco. Tax the empty storefronts at almost 150% higher than what they're paying now. Wait a minute, the storefront's empty. There's no one in there making money to pay rent. So you're going to go by the per square footage and increase my taxes because I've got an empty building. Does this make sense? And then they even go so much further with these idiot things is that if you are a freelance worker, we're going to limit how many people they can be employed by a company. So if you are a major movie producer and you need these freelance writers to come in, we're only going to allow you 2 or 3. So the rest of the guys can't work for you. Does this make any sense? How many people work freelance at their home? People that take doctor notes home, transcribe them, bring them back to the doctor. People that help and work in homeschooling as a freelance tutor. All these people, babysitters, pet sitters, they're freelance workers. They want to restrict how many freelance workers are going to be out there. So great, you've got homelessness that can't live in housing because the taxes are too high, and now you have the few homeless that may still have a job because they're freelance, won't be able to have their job. So jobs are going, storefronts are closing, homes are not being sold, apartments are not being rented because of the idiots sitting in the state capitol. I'm on a rant today.
Well, you're doing fine. You know, if you listen to Governor Newsom of California and Governor Cuomo of New York, they make it sound like they're living in paradise. They're doing such a great job. But, you know, the proof in the pudding is everybody's leaving that state. Here's the thing. It takes a while to leave a place. If you're a company, you can't just pack up. You've got lease arrangements. You're renting equipment. It takes a while. There's a lot of companies out there in both states that are looking at the clock going, as soon as that clock strikes a certain date, we're gone. Happening already. They're proud of it. They're very proud of the great job they're doing.
Oh, yeah, very proud. And they keep on coming up with one more idiot thing after another. And I know my husband pointed something else out that Newsom wanted to do, and I don't remember what I did with it. But they, left and right, you've got Virginia now going down the same path, starting off with the gun grab. So if we disarm our populace, like New York State has done, basically disarm them, you have to jump through 50,000 hoops in order to get a permit so you can purchase a gun, and then another 50,000 hoops in order to retain it, much less being able to take it to a firing range to practice. But now Virginia's following suit. And once they take the gun confiscation, then the next step will be higher taxes. Who's going to protest? We're already cowed you one way. We're going to cow you now with free speech. We're going to cow you now with higher taxes and other demands. Virginia's going down the same pathway as California and New York.
People forget how rural Virginia is, except for the northern part of the state. My friend's parents moved to a rural part of Virginia, and they were in a nice mansion within the first week. There was a knock on the back door, and some of their neighbors, some of the good old boys, they're all dressed up in their hunting gear. And they said, our family's been hunting here on your property. They just moved in. Our family's been hunting on this property for 5 generations. We're not going to stop now, no matter what you say. So they didn't ask. They just said that's what they're living through. So if you want to go try and grab those guns, well, good luck to you.
Well, they're going to find already, I think as of 2 weeks ago, 95 of the counties have turned around and said they are sanctuary zones for gun owners. 95 sheriffs had said we are not going to follow Virginia state law and confiscate weapons legally owned. So, we already got a revolution starting in Virginia. Virginia, which gave us Thomas Jefferson's George, oh, good Lord, my mind has really gone into a major brain fart. George Mason, all right, neighbor to George Washington. You've had so many founding fathers coming out of the state of Virginia. And that is, to see it turn as blue as it is, I have a funny feeling it's not going to last too long.
Well, here's the thing. When I write my books, I do my podcasts. Never do I predict the future. Do I speculate? Do I hypothesize? You know why? Because there's too much stuff going on right now. Right now, today, yesterday, the day before. And so, you know what? I mean, I can get my crystal ball out. I'll get my, 8-ball out. You can ask me any question. I'll just shake it and answer it. To me, I don't think we're doing anybody a service by sitting here. Well, years from now, this is what's going to happen. Now, people need to know what's going on right now.
Oh, I am not saying what may happen. I'm saying they go for your guns first. Next will be free speech. We've seen it occur. I'm just telling you what history has shown us. By looking in hindsight, I'm telling you what's going to go forward. And I'm just doing it as a warning to listeners out there, especially those that are in Virginia. Be prepared and get a hold of your elected official now to prevent any of these future actions from occurring. Because once they occur, you're not going back.
It's amazing how, if you go into D.C., if you spend any time at all in Washington, D.C., it's a company town. I mean, a company is government. So that's what a huge section of Virginia is now. It's Washington, D.C., for all effects and purposes. So that's what changed that state. Just government employees, all down with the cost.
All they need to do is look at what's been going on in Baltimore. It's flowing out. It's like a disease. It's like a virus. Or remember the movie, Steve McQueen, one of his worst movies, The Blob? That's what it is. It's just absorbing everything from around all the surrounding areas, taking it in and poisoning it. And it's got to be excised.
So I've been writing and documenting stuff about Baltimore for a long time. So Baltimore is a dark and dirty and dangerous chocolate city. It's run by black people, for black people. They're very proud of everything that they black people do there, except for one thing. It's the most dysfunctional and dangerous place in the country. And it's really, and the few white people who live there, they live in these little pockets near the Inner Harbor, near downtown. And this woman wrote an article called "Baltimore, You're Breaking My Heart." Throughout the article, she had to remind us every 10 paragraphs. I'm not talking about race here, but every one of my neighbors has been the victim of crime, including murder. And I have to borrow my neighbor's pit bull to go around this corner and buy a quart of milk. And when that article came out, hundreds and hundreds of academia, black intelligentsia of Baltimore responded to that article by saying, well, yeah, you said this is not about race. It's 100% about race. It's about your race, about your white racism that gives you an expectation of safety in Baltimore when nobody else has it. So that's how they're rolling in Baltimore. It couldn't be any worse. People are, every once in a while, for a year, somebody convinces somebody that things are going to change. So, all of a sudden you got 10 or 15 yuppie restaurants going up that sell beer for $10 a glass. Then, a year later, all of them are for sale. Nobody's buying. That's what's happening in Baltimore now. It's like 20 of these upscale restaurants for sale. People are begging somebody to come put something in there. Nobody wants any part of Baltimore anymore. That's just the way it is there. And that's the playbook all over the country. You play this identity politics. It's all about black victimization, white racism. Crime is absolutely caused by white racism. And so black criminals are not perpetrators. They are victims. This is the stuff I document. This is what people are saying in Baltimore. And it's just a recipe for catastrophe. You tell me, have you ever seen a city and a condition of Baltimore that's ever turned it around and come back?
Actually, no, I have not. I have actually not. We recently had a guest on. She's running for Congress out of the District of Baltimore, a young black woman, and she went down into those neighborhoods, and she's saying exactly the same thing. You've got people there. You can't walk anywhere without talking to someone that has been a victim of a crime, black on black crime, as well as black on white crime. And she's saying, it's got to stop. We need to have our elected officials on the local level, state level, and federal level to address these issues, asking, why is this? Why are these neighborhoods being...
That's not happening, yeah.
No, and when...
I need a herd of unicorns to run up my street right now and sprinkle some fairy dust in front of my house. That's not happening.
No.
Everybody comes up. That's the standard response. We're not taking it anymore, damn it. Not here in Baltimore. No. The most memorable thing I've ever seen in Baltimore was a couple of years ago. They had the big riots there over that drug addict, drug user, drug seller, Freddie Gray. And 120 cops went to the hospital. And they released the calls between the dispatch and the cops. And the cops are begging for help. They're begging for their leadership to send reinforcements, to send tear gas, to send more cops. You see the people being surrounded by crowds of black people who hate cops. 120 cops were in the hospital. You ever heard of anything like that? I don't even know what to call that.
I don't know either, because Elijah Cumming, who recently
cops
passed
are begging for help, and they're just said, like, no, the people who run the city, they were the ones saying, yeah, room to destroy. That's Baltimore. We're not going to arrest our way out of this mess.
Yet, if a cop goes in there and does their job, you're profiling us. Why is it you're arresting more black than you are anyone else? First off, this is where all the crime is. And second off, these are the individuals that are committing the crime. But no, it's racism. You're sending cops in here because it's a black neighborhood. Yeah, but you asked us to come in here and lower the crime rate. And so when we do our job, we're the bad guys. And, by the way, there's no more stop, question, and frisk. When we had stop, question, and frisk, it was narrowly defined. If a cop violated any of those specified requirements, you could not only just lose your job, you could go to prison. You had to make sure that everything you put down on that affidavit turned around and stated exactly what you saw, what your level of suspicion was, why you stopped that person, what was said, and if an arrest was made. You had to be specific and narrowly defined. I filled out a lot of those stop, question, and frisks, and I've been called in and questioned about it. And if I made one false statement, I could be arrested for perjury, I could lose my job, my pension, and end up in prison. And people don't understand what exactly stop, question, and frisk is. No, you stopped a black guy because he's black. No, I stopped him because I noticed a suspicious bulge in his pants. I noticed, or his pocket, I noticed he's wearing layer upon layer of clothes, and it's 90 degrees out, which means, knowing from experience, this man is looking to commit a crime. And he's going to shed his clothing. So if I see him running down the street committing the crime in a black jacket, he throws the jacket off. He's got a red shirt on. Now I'm stopping someone with a red shirt, yet I said he committed a crime wearing a black jacket. Throw the arrest out is the conclusion would be. Stop, question, and frisk. Help clean up a lot of neighborhoods. But if a cop uses it, you're a racist, you're a criminal, you're doing it only because you stopped a black guy.
Well, this is the kind of stuff I document every day in my books, podcasts, videos. There's just an enormous amount of resistance to anybody being open to actually. It's not hard to see if you look for it. It's not hard to see. And here's the thing. So you and I are sitting here. I'm talking about this enormous level of black crime and violence. There's only 3 replies I ever hear. 1, white people do it. 1, it's not happening. 2, white people do it too. 3, white people deserve it. That's the only 3 you hear. And if white people do it too, I beg people to send me the comparable videos, the comparable stories anywhere. Talking about flash robs. Send me a video of a whole bunch of white kids going into a store, laughing, smiling, dancing, stealing, beating, intimidating. Just like the video what happened 2 nights ago. Send me a video like you mentioned, the Greenwich Village video from 2 mornings ago. A woman going to yoga class on video. A guy comes up, beats the piss out of her. Send me a video of a white guy doing that to a black person, and I'll show you 1,000 the other way around. So it's enormous, the resistance to this. It's enormous, the level of resistance to just talking about reality. And, but you know what? We're just doing it every day, and we're moving the dial a little bit by a little bit. There's a lot of people in their back. I think they're in their, you tell me. I mean, do your friends ever talk about this stuff when they're in your house in their backyard? Do they ever say, hey, everybody says I'm a white racist, but I'm not really a white racist, but I turn on the TV and everybody says I am. Well, I think a lot of people that are in their backyards around the country are going, well, I don't want to, no, this is going too far for me. I just don't want any part of this anymore. None of it.
I found interesting, I saw a chart up on the internet the other day, and I was been talking about this Muslim patrol in Brooklyn, and their uniforms look very wearily similar to NYPD. Their cars are almost identical to NYPD. And I've worked with the Shaman Patrol in Williamsburg, and no, they don't do that. They use their personal cars and wear their everyday attire. I've worked with the Asian patrols. There's a part of on Flushing Avenue that has an Asian community. Nope, they don't do that. Only this one Muslim patrol, which they want to make not just during that one precinct, they want to make it citywide and then eventually statewide. They said they did this because of the rise in crime against Muslims. And when you actually look at the statistics of crimes against a Muslim compared to someone that is Jewish, the numbers are astronomical. I think it was a total over a 5-year period of 7 on Muslims. But when you looked at the number of the Jewish attacks, you're talking about in the hundreds. In the hundreds. So we now have a new situation arising where you're also getting hate crime hoaxes from the Muslim community. And we're seeing this, like the woman that claimed her job was ripped off. No one touched her.
I remember that very well. Yeah.
So you're seeing an excuse.
You know, I love a hoax.
Go ahead.
I've probably written more about hoaxes than anybody. I have a book coming out on hoaxes pretty soon. I love a hoax because what could be more illustrating, edifying for you and for me than to see how reporters are so eager to take every single hoax, hook, line, and sinker. Everyone. They never just say, hey, that really happened. No, it happened because white people go around doing that all the time. Oh, yeah, I love a good hoax.
Yeah, well, I mentioned the Muslim because there's also another story that is up there because now the big thing is they go into fast food restaurants, order the food, and then sue the place because there's a sausage on your breakfast biscuit. And I believe it's McDonald's that's being sued by this one guy who shows a half-eaten sausage, bacon, cheese, and sausage biscuit. It's half-eaten. I mean, it took him more than one bite to determine that is a sausage patty on that thing you're eating. I don't think so. So these new hoaxes, you're going to see almost every single hoax you see perpetrated, its basis is a bankroll. They want to win that pot of gold. So McDonald's is suing because they put a sausage on his biscuit, but that's probably how he ordered it. And by the time he got home, he said, all right, it's time to call the attorney and sue McDonald's because it's hate crime against me because I'm Muslim and they know I can't eat pork.
You know, there's a lot of reasons for hate crime hoaxes. And you know, a lot of them are people who do want to win the gala lottery, but I wouldn't even say it's most of them. There's just a lot of different reasons: attention, hatred, vitriol, whatever. Man, I've got so many. I could just, if we get on this topic, I won't stop till 12 hours now.
Well,
but the important thing is for us to see is how easy it is for reporters to take it hook, line, and sinker. And by the way, you're talking about Muslims in New York?
90 seconds.
They're not violent with each other in New York. And that's one thing, it's one of the, of all the hundreds and hundreds of attacks on Jews, I've only seen one involving an Arab guy.
Yeah. And a lot of them are all hoaxes. And it's for the attention, but it's also so that they can put in place whatever their community is mandating, whether it's a stricter adherence to Sharia law, whether it's given preferential treatment. A lot of this gets, for that attention and preferential treatment. We see the infiltration of the Muslim Brotherhood within even NYPD. You see it in the FBI, the CIA. You see it in lots of government agencies. Look at the Obama administration. When CARE turns around and opens their voice, everyone snaps to attention. Oh, yes, you're right. We're doing this wrong, and you're going to tell us how we're supposed to do it the right way. CARE is an unindicted co-conspirator in a felony. they have been labeled a terrorist organization, and yet we still allow them to dictate to us what is right and what is wrong.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely amazing.
All right, well, I'm starting to run out of gas here after about an hour. Should we do what we got to do to put a bow on this little birthday party?
Sure. People can find you, and you have a podcast that is linked to your website, which is your name, colinflaherty.com. Colin, as soon as your new book comes out, please send it to me so we can have you back on again. And I didn't realize you had a brand new book out, these called Don't Make the Black Kids Angry, The Hoax of Black Victimization and Those Who Enabled It. And I managed to say that without stuttering, Colin.
Well, that's good. I think this whole topic scares the bejesus out of a lot of people. And so what we try to do just by example is show people how we can talk about this plainly, without racism, without rancor, without apologies. Notice I didn't do any apologies here for anything. It was like, no, well, I'm not going to apologize. I didn't do anything. We're sitting here exposing the people who do things. I think, and the overwhelming reaction I get from people is, man, I'm just relieved there's some relatively normal person out there who's talking about this in a very plain, straightforward way with lots of examples and not just giving me airy-fairy stuff that's going to be happening over the next 10,000 years. And well, that's been my experience.
Well, Colin, thank you for joining us, and we'll be talking soon. You have a blessed day.
All the best to you.
Okay. Check it out, colinflaherty.com, and bringing up our next victim into the bullpen. And I've got to admit, I have no co-host at this point because Curtis is out doing a book signing down in Jupiter, Florida. But a friend of mine, I like to call her that, and a friend of the show, someone I've known for, believe it or not, just about 10 years. Welcome aboard, Amy Kremer. Good afternoon, Amy. It's been a while. I haven't seen you in a while.
I know. How are you?
Yeah, the last time I saw you was up in, oh, good Lord, Somerville, when Mark Sanford was first running for Congress. It was the last time I saw you.
Yeah, gosh, when was that? 14? I can't even remember when it was. But yes, I was there to endorse him. It was a special election.
Yeah, and you caught me. You caught me off guard. I showed up there. I showed up there with my husband because you had called me and said, can you bring Tea Party people up here? So I called around to other Tea Party, sent out messages to my group, and I showed up there, and you said I was the only Tea Party leader that showed up. And you asked me to introduce Mark Sanford to the group. I'm there in blue jeans, no makeup on, no notes, nothing. And you yanked me in front of the microphones and cameras, and I'm like, okay, what do I say? And to this day, I don't remember everything I said. And I talked about maybe 3-4 minutes. I turned around to look to you and Mark to introduce you personally. And the looks on your faces, I'm like, oh, shit. What the heck? Because your mouths were actually open. And I walked away. I was shaking. I went to sit down to drink my water. My hands, and here's this tough New York City cop. Hands are shaking like crazy. And I'm listening to you and Mark talk. And my husband's going, what's wrong? I says, I think I stepped in it. I don't know what I said. And Mark came over and he says, in that 3 minutes, you said what took me more than 20 minutes to say. And it blew me away. So what did I say?
Well, I mean, that's the thing is, you know what? You're like me. You speak from the heart. And when it's in your heart, you don't have to have notes or whatever. I'm sorry to have done that to you. But, yeah, I mean, look, you showed up there, and I know that you believed in the movement and still do. I'm asked all the time what happened to the Tea Party movement. Well, it's still here. It's just not labeled Tea Party anymore. I mean, people say, you know, where did it go? The Tea Party is what laid the foundation for President Trump. Without the Tea Party movement, I don't think we would have a President Trump right now. So the Tea Party's still here. It's just grown and morphed into something else. I think it's matured is probably a good way to say it.
Well, I guess what, Amy? I must be one that's bucking the trend because I've got my next Tea Party meeting on the 20th is Monday, and I've got our state first vice chair and second vice chair of the GOP coming over, because I wanted to get them to talk about how we, as the Tea Party still in existence here, want to work and help with the 2020 elections. Because what we found is that when we first started, the GOP did not want anything to do with us. But I think my state and my county realized the power, because I still remain. I'm still here. I'm still kicking. I'm still fighting, and people know me. And I think that garnered us enough respect.
And that's
to say,
amazing.
Yeah. I don't know how I did it.
And there are some local groups that to this day they still meet. And that is fantastic. I mean, everybody needs to be engaged in some way. And so I commend all of you that are out there that, you know, at the end of the day, does it really, I say it about titles, does it really matter what my title is? No. It's not my title that enables me to do anything. It's who I am and what I believe in. And I go out there and work my heart and soul out. And I think the same thing, whether you use Tea Party label, MAGA label, whatever. I mean, if it's in your heart and soul, you're going to go out there and work for what you believe. So at least you have those people engaged, and y'all are still meeting, and so you're to be commended for that.
Well, you know, I have a favorite saying whenever I have one of my meetings, and it says, you leave your egos at the door. And I think that's the problem that we had that may have also helped cause the breakup of a lot of these major Tea Party organizations. They can't leave their ego at the door. It's like, as you're saying, we have a purpose, we have a cause, we have a reason. So who cares who's top dog? I mean, if you can do something better than me or have more information, give it, please. Let's exchange. And I think that's why that some of us can be successful and some of us end up failing. And I think that we're seeing this in the Trump movement because there's really no one out there being top dog except for Trump.
Right. And he sucks up all the oxygen, doesn't he? I mean, which is fantastic. But you know, the only reason I care about it is because we're getting ready to go in the 2020 election cycle, and I'm focused on House races because I believe he's going to win, and I think he'll probably win in a landslide. But we're going to have to work for it. But the thing is, we have to take back the House. If he wins or he loses, we have to take back that House. And when you're going out there and endorsing candidates and getting behind these candidates, I mean, you need to be able to break through in the press and get the story out there and support these candidates. And when he's taking up all the oxygen in the room, it's a big challenge.
Oh, that it is. And here in South Carolina, District 1, my district, we have been very vocal. As a matter of fact, your representative, Debbie Schultz, helped us form a little rally outside of Joe Beer Can Cunningham's office when we were going into the impeachment. So I don't know if I sent you those pictures of us out there opposite Joe Cunningham and then the protesters on the other side of the street. We rallied, and there were Women for Trump out there. I should have mentioned that at the start of the show. Amy Kremer, who is the founder of the Women for Trump. But I also know that you're going to start doing bus tours. Not bus tours. Oh, good. You're going to go. It is a bus tour.
Go ahead. Well,
right?
So, what we're working on, and I have to make it clear, I'm not part of the campaign, because the campaign does have their coalition that they started back this past summer, but I'm one of the founders of Women for Trump that started back in 2016, and we're actually a PAC, and so we are, like I said, focused on taking back the House. That's going to be our primary focus, and we're looking at right now. I don't know if it'll be a bus tour. I don't know what kind of tour it's going to be exactly. We haven't made any announcement about it, but we are going to start in Nancy Pelosi's district right there in the belly of the beast in San Francisco, and we're going to go across this country and hit all those 31 districts that Trump won, and Democrats are in the seats now, and then some other seats that are competitive as well. We're going to be visiting those, and we're going to rally people. One of our biggest challenges this cycle, the Trump derangement syndrome is so bad. And one of our things that I'm asked all the time, how do you talk to other women about why you support Trump? Well, it's really easy. It's it's all women's issues. I mean, women's issues are the same as everybody else's, and you got to go out there and pull on heartstrings and emotions and whatnot. But you can do that through storytelling and making it personal. But the thing about it is, there's so many people that support this man, and they're afraid to express themselves, whether it be with family, coworkers, or whatever, because they're fear of backlash, because you don't know what kind of backlash you're going to get. So that's what we want to do, is go out there and show, hey, we're here, come join us, because it emboldens people and it gives them, the confidence that they need to then go and talk to other people. And President Trump can run all the commercials and do all the digital advertising and all these things, travel across the country, but his biggest asset when it comes to women are the women that support him, because we are sort of like the brand ambassadors, and we're going to go out there and talk about why we support him and why it's important to us. And that's probably the most important thing we can do, and we need to be doing it in those districts where we take back the House.
Well, why did you focus on just women? Is that because the Democrats were saying no sane woman would vote for Trump?
Yeah, well, we started the PAC, we started the PAC back in, like I said, in the election of 2016. I was one of his earliest supporters out there. I took a lot of heat. I lost a lot of friends over it. And, most people expected me to be on board with Senator Cruz, because I had helped elect him to the U.S. Senate back in 2012. But I was always on board with President Trump from the beginning, because I thought he was exactly what we needed, a fighter and a businessman, not another attorney, not another politician. And so I was always on board with him. We started the organization, and then after the election, we kind of went on sabbatical, worked on a few other things, and then about in probably the summer of 2017, after he'd been in office, it was like, you know what, there's more of a need now to have Women for Trump than there even was back during the election, because we can't give this ground to these feminists. I mean, I am a feminist too, but I don't need somebody to go out there to give me a soapbox and to make all the excuses for me. And I'm not a victim of anything. I'm responsible for my own self. I'm proud of my upbringing. I'm proud of what I've accomplished in life, but it's not because it's been given to me. It's because I've gone out there and worked hard for it. I'm asked all the time, do you feel like men hold you back? Hell no, I don't feel like men hold me back. Women hold me back. Women are the worst at holding women back. And so we have these feminists out there, and they're so loud, and they don't represent all of us. And so somebody needed to be the voice to push back on that. And, we started it back up and going, and here we are.
I wish that you would have been with us when we went to the inauguration, because we were like about 3 blocks behind the Capitol. And what a view, what an absolute view. And I was with some of the staff from Mark Sanford's office, and we all rented an apartment that was just perfect location. But the bad downside is that when we went to leave afterwards, you had that pink vagina hat demonstration coming down the street. I mean, how we got out of there without getting beat up, I don't know. And of course, Amy, I'm like you. I can't keep my mouth shut. And as we were packing up the car, I see this vicar coming down the street with some of these women, and he's marching with women that say, "My body, my choice." And I started chastising the victor, and I says, how dare you? When Christ teaches us the sanctity of life, when it is told to us, I know you in the womb, that is a human being. How dare you? You're violating your very... And oh, my God, my girlfriend just grabbed my arm and goes, "You're going to get us beat up." I wish you had been with us.
Yeah, I mean... But this is the thing. You know what? Do you know why those women were there? They weren't there because, the Women's March. We're going to protest Donald Trump. We want him out of office. Madonna blowing up the White House or what. Those women were there. Let's be real. There's one reason they were there, because they had already bought their tickets and had their hotel reservations because they thought they were going to be attending Hillary's inauguration. And so they were already there, so they had to plan something. And you know what? Good for them. But, the reality is he hadn't taken anything away from them then. He hasn't taken anything away from them now. As a matter of fact, I mean, just today, the stock market hit 29,000, top 29,000 for the first time ever. The 3 years since this man has been in office, the stock market has climbed 11,000 points. There are 7 million jobs that need to be filled right now. That 11,000 points that the stock market has climbed, it has contributed $12.8 trillion to the U.S. economy. I mean, that's amazing. And so even the women that march in the streets with their pink hats on, guess what? I mean, his policies are benefiting them and their families just like they're benefiting me and my families. And I am convinced that there are some of those women that will go into the ballot box and vote for Donald Trump because their families are thriving on this Trump economy that's on fire right now too. And then they may attend the Women's March, next January or whatever, and they may never admit that they voted for him because we've become a tribal society and they want to be in vogue, not liking this president. Everybody hates this president because he doesn't say the right things on Twitter. But at the end of the day, I think some of them will vote for him because his policies are good for them and their families just like they are for my family. And that's what really matters.
You said a mouthful. You said a lot of things in there, but I want to break a little bit of it down because my father, God bless him, passed away a little over 6 years ago and left her with an investment account. Not a really huge one, but enough to leave her comfortable. And under the Obama administration, I watched that account dwindle. And it got to the point where my mother's looking at it and goes,
right.
No, I don't think I can take anything else out. She needed house repairs. And she's not someone that lives close to me. She lives in the Virgin Islands. And she goes, I can't touch it. Otherwise, I'm not going to have anything in an emergency. That account has more than doubled under Trump in those 3 years that he's been here. So now when I call her and I said, Mom, this is your bottom line, I hear the sigh of relief in her voice. And there's a lot of people in situations exactly like my mom. You make a modest investment thinking that you'll have it there in your old age. Here she is. She's 87 years old. 87 this year. And she is now sighing comfortably saying, all right, I may not have a lot of years left, but at least I have something here. And should I pass, I have it to give to my children. These are the people that Trump is reaching and resonating to. There's something else you talked about, women and the job market. It is the first time I have ever in my entire life, and looking back before I was born, ever seen the unemployment rate for women drop to a record low. It is the first time we are 3.6% unemployment rate. What are men? The same. 3.6%. I have never seen it on an equal par. It doesn't happen. It is. I don't think in the history of our nation it has never happened. But this is what this president has done. And it's resonating with what he has collected recently. You had the figures up on his donations, and he's barely even touched the bucket.
It really is amazing what he has done. It really is. But the thing is, while we're talking about women, he's done it for everybody. For African Americans, for Hispanics. It's really, pardon me, I don't know where he gets his energy, how he keeps going, especially with all the roadblocks in front of him and the constant fire at him. I don't know how he does it, but you know what? I thank God for him, and I think we're going to get 4 more years.
I'm your lips to God's ears, and we're going to be doing it with the help of people listening, with the help of people who realize how their lives have changed for the better because of this one man. He may not be eloquent. He may not always say things the right way. He may give an appearance that may rile you a little bit the wrong way, but look at his actions, what he has actually done, and how it has benefited each and every one of us. I posted something about MoveOn.org yesterday, had this massive phone call going on how to counter Trump and no war with Iran and all this other BS. And a family member said, so you want to go to war? No, if taking out one terrorist saves millions of lives, I'd rather take out that one terrorist and save 1 million lives. But this is the mindset of the rabid left. And I've got a friend in the chat room that said that Trump lives in the lefty's brain rent free, and I think it's true.
Oh my gosh, he does. I mean, he makes them crazy, and they don't know how to deal with him. They don't know how to deal with him, and he stays focused, and he just plows forward, and all the accomplishments. And that's the thing is, last time, two things. You said you were talking about how he doesn't say the right thing sometimes, and he may not be the most eloquent. Well, look at where we came from. We had somebody that was politically correct, that could use a teleprompter, that said things so eloquently and gave great speeches. And where did it get us? I mean, seriously, we've been there, tried the other way, and it didn't work out so well. So if he doesn't say all the right things, I can forgive him on that. I mean, there's not one person that is perfect and says things right all the time. But he just plows forward. I think he makes the left crazy. I think he makes the media crazy. And he's like that with the media. He is like, that red laser on the wall that the cat chases. And the media is the cat, and Trump's just doing his laser on the wall, making them crazy. I mean, he has played them. He's essentially made them irrelevant because you no longer have. That's the greatest thing is he may not say things eloquently all the time, or maybe I would have said things a different way or whatever. But there is one thing: I always know what he's thinking. There's no doubt about where he's coming from, what his position is, because he goes right around the media, right around their filters, and goes to Twitter and speaks directly to the American people. And I think it is the greatest thing ever. And I love it, and I just hope he continues to do it.
Well, I watched the rally last night with my husband, and the two of us were hysterical. The things that he was coming out with and saying, but every single thing he was doing was the absolute truth. I didn't mind falling out of my Archie Bunker chair laughing, but it was laughter of joy, not of anger, not of frustration. I think because he's also putting joy back in. And I don't think that people realize that. There is a change in the emotional level. The morals of the nation are shifting back to where it should be. And this is one of the things you do in your Women for Trump. I like the way I segue that way into this one, because you have a series of seminars and conferences that you host. And like one of them is Love and Respect Live Marriage Conference. You honed in on this one and said, America is starting to refocus on its moral values. Let's help.
Right.
Good segue.
Well,
huh?
I mean, yeah, that is, it's very important to, our kids are our report cards in life. And I think that we have, over a period of years, we've gotten away from, sitting down at the dinner table and instilling these moral values into your children. And we've kind of become the society where we're a soundbite society. You get everything from social media. Kids don't go outside and play anymore. Quite honestly, there's a generation now that has no interpersonal skills whatsoever because all they do is they're on these electronic devices. God forbid they actually pick up a phone and call a girl if they like her, or whatever, because they'd rather text. And at the end of the day, it's not healthy. And a lot of us are seeing that. And, the left has been very loud and pushed this political correctness and this and that. And at some point, you have to stand up for what you believe in. And you have to fight back. And that's the one thing about President Trump that he's taught us. And I hope more than anything, this is what the Republicans take from, his presidency is how to fight back. That is one of the things about the women. Why did I do this? Because I'm not going to cede that ground to these feminist women. And it goes the same thing on whether it's a life issue, whatever the issue is. It's okay to believe in what, to come from a different point of view, to have a different perspective. It's not okay to be disrespectful to people and treat them like lower class people or that they're dumb or whatever just because they don't agree with you. And that is what the left has been so good at, is demonizing us. We saw it in the Tea Party movement. We've seen it, with conservatives, that the left demonizes us at every step of the way. And President Trump has taught people how to fight back and do not give in to them. Perfect example, the Covington kids. I mean, Nick Sandmann just this week settled with CNN for $25 million, I believe.
Wow.
Over what they did to him, which was horrific. And that's the worst. That was just one of many lawsuits that are still in the hopper. But the moral of that story, two things. The media should take note of that, let it be a lesson to them. But also, from a conservative standpoint, I mean, fight back. Stand up for what you believe in. It's okay. I mean, we should be fighting back for the things that we believe in. And so, whatever your issue is, go out there and fight back, but at the same time, respect people, respect that people may have a different opinion, whatever. That doesn't mean just agree to disagree and move on. It's about respect. We don't have a lot of respect in our society these days. I don't think. The left has taken things to a whole different level, and I think it's unfortunate. I tell my daughter to this day, probably 2 days ago, I texted her, and she's 29 years old. I texted her. She had some stuff going on, and I said, always remember the golden rule. Live your life by the golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated, and you'll enjoy life, and you'll get a lot more out of it. And she knows I'm right. And I have taught her that, and I think that's how many kids even know what the golden rule is these days? Not many.
No, not many, because the left has made everyone a victim. I get special treatment because I am a victim. And what we have to do is eliminate that special treatment class. And remember that we all bleed red. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. It makes no difference. It's supposed to be equal protection in the eyes of the law. And let's exercise that. And if you're going to charge someone with robbery, it doesn't matter what color the skin was. What matters are the circumstances which made you commit that robbery. You were greedy, you needed drugs money. Hey, that's the sentence, and that's what you get. I don't care. And we've stepped away from that. But now you have New York City. Oh, no, we can't incarcerate people. And if we're not going to give you bail, so you don't stay in jail, but we're going to trust you to show up. And, oh, by the way, here's some free movie tickets, some tickets to a concert or your favorite sporting events. Now, we're going to trust you to show up, but we're going to pay you because you committed a crime. That's the mentality of the left, and this is what we and Trump are fighting.
No, I mean, it's crazy. Here in Atlanta, they just announced that the Atlanta Police Department just announced that they have instituted this no chase policy. So if they're trying to catch somebody and it turns into a chase, the Atlanta Police Department is no longer going to chase them. They can chase people, I think they said, by helicopter, but no longer will it happen. Well, okay, that's great. I'm not debating whether that's a good policy or not. But the thing about it is, even if you want that policy, why would you go out there and announce it to the public? You just gave all the criminals a free pass. Exactly. The criminals don't want to get away. Oh, I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to speed away, and they're not going to chase me. I mean, it's like it, but we have to give. It is ridiculous. And what's happening in New York City, I mean, in California too. I mean, the liberal progressive policies that are going on in these states, California, New York, and I mean, so many people are moving out of those states and moving to other states, whether it's for less taxes or whatever. But the problem is don't come to my state and then vote for the liberal policies here, because we can't have these red states that are conservative states that are, of common sense states. We can't have your blue policies implemented here. So it's great if you want to come here, but don't bring that agenda with you.
That's the unfortunate thing, because I'm just over the border from you. I'm here in Beaufort, and to see stuff like this going on, it drives me absolutely nuts. Because I remember in New York City, we had the progressive policies in place back in the 80s and 90s. And if you had a sergeant or a lieutenant that was on duty that was so wishy-washy, as soon as you started the chase, you hear the radio go, call it off. Their fear that a bystander, an innocent bystander, may be hurt outweighed the amount of damage the criminal could do if he got away. Oh, heaven forbid, the city might be sued because someone stubbed their toe in a foot chase or in a car chase. But no. The odds of this individual getting away and committing more crimes and causing far more damage than you in a car chase, it just doesn't equal. It's not equal. It doesn't make any sense, and yet we get our elected officials away with it. We allow them to get away with it because we keep on electing them.
Look, I mean, pardon me, you're right, we do, and we are responsible for it. You want to know why why we're so in debt? Because we have elected these people, kind of given them this blind trust to go to Washington, and then kept, focused on our families, living our lives, working, raising our families, whatever, and not paid attention to what they're doing. And then all of a sudden, holy moly, we have $20 trillion of debt or whatever. We have caused that to happen. And same thing with, allowing them. There's, the elitists in Washington, D.C., then there's us little people out here. And it is a completely different world. It is totally and completely different. And they have a different set of rules. Look at Hillary Clinton and what went on with the deep state. Perfect example. Look at what's going on with Michael Flynn and James Comey or Brennan, whoever. Michael Flynn is about to go to jail for lying to the FBI about something that seriously had no consequences. It was something he should have never lied to him. I'm not saying it's okay to lie, but he was just trying to protect his son. It had no real consequences what he lied about. James Comey and others lied to the FBI. Andrew McCabe lied to the FBI about things that had actual consequences. And who's going to jail? It's a double standard. I don't care. But we are the ones that have allowed it to come to this and have allowed it to happen. And the only way that it's going to stop is for us to fight back and to take some responsibility for what's gone up there, and to be more involved, I think, in our, in government and holding them accountable.
But people are afraid to step into the limelight. Very few people are willing to take that stance. And it's something as simple as writing a letter to the editor, something as simple as calling your elected official's office and just letting your opinion know. But people are too timid. And this is what you work on, and this is what I work on trying to get people out of their shells and saying it's okay to have a different opinion. Express it so we can have an open public dialogue and solve whatever the problem is. It's not going to get solved if everyone sits in their little shell and doesn't say anything, because then the elected official thinks they have the carte blanche to do whatever they feel is right.
Right.
And we're allowing the elite government to rule us rather than we, the people, controlling the government. That's where we've gone wrong.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I think, if you look at what's going on in Virginia right now with the Second Amendment and wanting to take away guns, you've seen this uprising. They just had their elections back in November, and now the Democrats are in charge of, I guess, their Senate, their legislator, their state Senate, and the governorship. And so, but you are seeing this uprising across the state of Virginia, where all these cities are now implementing sanctuary city policies for gun owners. And somebody is saying, how did we get here? How did this happen? It's really simple how it happened, because the people weren't paying attention. And how many people own guns that care about the Second Amendment and want to protect the Second Amendment have never been involved in politics, so they don't go out and vote. They don't get involved. And then all of a sudden, holy moly, Democrats they've been elected at every level, and now they want to come and take our guns. How did we get here? It's your fault that you're there, because you weren't paying attention and you allowed it to happen. And it's going to be really interesting, I think, to see what happens next election if they are able to reverse that at all.
It's going to be amazing because everyone is watching the state of Virginia. Nationwide, we're watching. A lot of people going, oh, wow.
Right.
Has it really gotten that bad? And when Trump was running for election, I had a dear friend, he's now passed away. He would complain about the government, about what was going on constantly. And this was a retired veteran. And I said, well, when was the last time you voted? His answer was, I've never voted. My jaw dropped.
Are
and I
you
looked at
kidding?
I'm serious. And the gentleman was about a good 10 years older than I am. And I'm a little bit older than you. So I'm not going to go past that. And his wife, she goes, no, I've never voted. And I was absolutely stunned. And I said, well, what
Right.
gives you the right to sit here and complain when you haven't done anything to prevent everything that's been happening today? Have you written a congressman? Have
Right.
you called? Have you done a letter to the editor? Have you even gone on social network to post your complaints? No. But unless we, the people, get off
Right.
our butts, nothing will change. And this is what Donald Trump is doing. He is getting we, the people, up off our chairs and out the front door and to the voting booth. I think we're going to have a massive turnout for this election come November. That's my prediction. I had someone earlier guess that I never predict. I'm saying, I said it before for when he was running, and I'm saying it again. It's going to be a number that you'll never believe.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty big too. I definitely think it is. And one of the things people say, well, what do you think happened in 2018? They say it happened because suburban women didn't vote for President Trump. Well, or suburban women, that's where we lost the House, was because of suburban women, and these suburban women don't support the president. Well, I think a lot of women it wasn't a presidential election. A lot of people sat home, not just women, but a lot of Trump supporters, people supported the president, had never voted in their lives. 2016 was the first time they voted, and they thought, he's got the House, the Senate, and the presidency. He can, he's going to be fine. No worries. Well, we know that that's not true. But they weren't engaged in the 2018 election. They were not activists. My point is they are now activists. And the reason they're activists is because they see what Pelosi and the Dems are doing to him. I've had so many people in the past 6 months get out of their houses and get engaged because they don't like what's being done to him. And these are people that voted for him in 2016 and have never been activists, but now see what's going on, and they're like, oh, hell no. We have to fight for him. We have to stand up for him. And so it's a good thing that they are getting engaged in making a difference. But to those people that have, never gone and stood on a street corner with a sign, supporting the president or supporting a congressional candidate, go do it. People think I'm crazy when I say go do sign wavings. I'd never done a sign waving either until 10 years ago in a Senate race in Delaware. But the thing about it is, there is so much support for this president right now, and everybody's afraid to express it. So when you go stand on a street corner with 3 or 4 people, you take a Bluetooth speaker out there, you turn on some music, and you wave your Trump sign, you would not believe the number of thumbs up that you get and the horns honking and whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
And it's encouraging to people. But if you don't want to go do that, fine, don't go do that. But you can get on Twitter and Facebook and show your support to this president. And you can also get on there and push back on the elected officials that you don't like their policies or whatever. That is one thing. You can call them, you can visit their office, you can write them, and it's private. But the thing is, when you take it to social media, it's a public forum, and they can't ignore it. So if enough of them push back on whatever policy it may be, we can have an impact. And trust me, they are paying attention. They are absolutely paying attention. But find whatever you're comfortable doing and go do it, because I assure you that other people will come out of the woodwork and get engaged.
I'd go even a little bit further. You go onto their emailing list and sign up. Even if the person is not of the same political party or mindset, sign up. So that way we can get our message out there, and we'll also understand what the messages are coming from the other side. I mean, Amy, I'm going to make you laugh, but I've even gone so far as to sign up under an alias, and they'll never know that it's me, for moveon.org. And I get a ton of stuff from there, and it tells me what their game plan is, what their ideas are, and what they're pushing. So at least when I go back to my group and go, hey, we're facing this. They're going to be on XYZ corner protesting, sign waving. Let's be on the opposite corner doing the same thing. And we had one of these pro-illegal immigrant rallies in our town, and it last minute, just a couple hours before I found out about it, got a bunch of people together, and we stood on the outer corner closest to the street while they were all inside in the parking lot. We got more honks and thumbs up, and there was only 5 of us compared to approximately 150 people. 5 of us stood up against 150 people and got more honks and more waves and more thumbs up.
Right. And you know what? Probably, I don't know, I wasn't there, but probably those people that were on the opposite corner were probably paid to be there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they are. And do not hesitate to know that. A lot of these demonstrations, because I saw people that I knew did not belong to our town. I saw people wearing T-shirts that you never saw with logos on. They would not walk around town with those because they know they would get some sort of a snide comment. But it's something we have to do. It's gotten to that point. We have to know what their game plan is so we can put ours in motion too.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, when Facebook became such a thing back in the early days of the Tea Party movement, I went and liked, moveon.org and Hillary's page, and I would get people all the time that said, why do you like this? I thought you were conservative. I am a conservative, but you should always know what your enemy's doing. Always know what your enemy's doing. So I get every email, the Women's March, Moms Rising, whatever. I get their text messages, just like I get the Trump campaign's text messages. You should always know what they're doing. But this is the thing. You have, whether it's on a local level, a state level, a federal level, in order to make a difference, you have to be in the game. You have to be in the town square. You have to be in the game. You have to vote. If you don't like what's going on, the only way you're going to change it is by getting into the game and being in the arena. And so I do think he's going to win on a landslide. I think we're seeing more and more people because of what's happening with this impeachment stuff, and it's making people mad because look at all the man has done. Last time he ran on just words. It was just words he ran on. Look at his accomplishments. His accomplishments speak for themselves. And imagine what he could do if he was not facing resistance 24/7. I mean, I can't imagine if the deep state was not trying to take down his presidency, or the Democrats would actually work with him, but they won't because they don't want to give him another win on anything. I can't imagine what the man could have accomplished. And I'll tell you, I mean, I do think he's going to win in a landslide, and I pray to God we take back the House and we keep the Senate. And if all that happens, if he wins on election night, I don't know what the left's going to do. Mm. It worries me because
it does.
I can't imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's going to be getting harder and harder the closer we get to election day, because then you're going to see the fight really coming out. And I do fear violence coming from the left. And we know Antifa, Black Lives Matter, all those other groups are going to be out there in droves. And they do what we don't do. They get people that show up at every single one of the rallies. Because if you saw the riots in Ferguson, same exact people showed up in L.A., showed up in New York, showed up in all the other places where Antifa and Black Lives Matter were, or Occupy, or whatever the flavor of the month is with Soros. But it's the same individuals. And they're organizers and they're being paid. We're more honest, I hope. I hope and pray that we're more honest. And we don't do that. But we have to have people in the local level able to rally and face the mob. And that's the only way we're going to do it.
Right.
And it takes an intestinal fortitude that's not easy. Because when we saw those 150 people marching towards just the 5 of us, a couple of them were like looking at me like, well, do we stay or do we go? And I started singing God Bless America. And all 5 of us were singing at the top of our lungs, God Bless America. And when half the crowd went through, all of a sudden they heard us singing, realizing that, they started joining us. And we were giving them the thumbs up for joining and singing. You know, you have to do it with a sense of humor, but also stay on guard so you stay safe.
No, I totally agree. We were in D.C. mid-December for our Christmas festivities. We had a policy briefing at the White House, a boot camp, women's empowerment boot camp, and then visited the White House for a Christmas tour. And we were wrapping up that Saturday night with a cocktail reception at the Willard Hotel, which is a historic hotel right across the street from the White House. I don't know if you read about it or saw anything about it, but we actually, there was a wedding going on right next to us, and they had to walk past the ballroom or the rooms where we were. They had to walk past those rooms to go to the restroom. And so somebody realized that we were Trump supporters, and let me tell you, they harassed us all night. It was horrible, to the point where some of the ladies, as they were leaving, had to be escorted upstairs by one of our, he was a speaker there, but he's a Navy SEAL, Jonathan Gillum. And so he was escorting women, up so that they could leave because these people were harassing us so bad. Well, Jonathan escorted, a group of ladies up the stairs, and they were waiting at the top of the stairs for him, and attacked him and tried to choke him with his tie. And he finally punched one of them in the face because he was about to lose consciousness or whatever. And anyhow, the police were called, and the person that was choking him was arrested. That wedding party was very high-profile Democrats. Very high-profile Democrats that work with the DNC, that were in the Obama administration, that are lobbyists, very high-profile Democrats. And they were harassing us at a private event. This stuff happens all the time, when you have protests out in the streets or whatever. I mean, we see it a lot where you'll get agitators that are just trying to do anything. But you don't usually see it at private events, especially at one of DC's poshest hotels. And it happened to us, and, I mean, it needs to be a lesson to people that you have to be on guard and you have to be paying attention, but don't ever back down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can't cede that ground to them.
Absolutely. I have it where I try to get people to come to my meeting, and they say, oh, yeah, we'll be there. We agree with everything you say. Yeah. But when it comes to shove, they can't make it out of their easy chair and out the front door, much less walk into where we hold our events. It takes courage. And I think this is something that we need to put back in people, that backbone, that spine that our forefathers had. We would not have settled this great nation if those who were our ancestors had the courage to take that first step and then continue to proceed. I mean, look at how marvelous and magnificent we have built this nation up. And unless we are here to help maintain it, it's going to come crashing down our ears. And thank God we have Trump right now holding up, like Atlas, holding up the world. He's holding up this nation. And there's got to be support for him. Otherwise, everything he's done will mean nothing.
I always say, how the hell are we going to protect the U.S. Constitution in this nation if you're afraid to wear a MAGA hat? If you are afraid to wear your red hat out in public, how are you going to protect the U.S. Constitution and fight for what you believe in? Would our forefathers have been afraid to wear a red hat? Hell no. No way. the thing is, they want to intimidate us and get rid of us one by one and tear us down. We saw it in the Tea Party movement. They would come after one of us and destroy us in the media or whatever. And their objective is they want us to go away. You attack somebody, you expose them, you do all these things to them, you make their life a living hell. They're going to say this isn't worth it, and they're going to back away. And they do it to you one by one, and then they get rid of everybody. We cannot allow them to do that. We cannot allow them to do that.
Well,
you have to fight back.
I'm looking at the clock, and this show has gone so fast. My co-host Curtis C.S. Bennett could not be with us because he's at a book signing. I think it's either book number 24 or 25 down in Florida.
Wow.
But he'll be back next week. But Amy, I want to know, when you come here to South Carolina District 1, let me know well ahead of time. I mean, the two of us got to sit down together, have a cup of coffee. I don't drink coffee. I'll drink water. I mean, I'm looking at my notes on everything I was going to talk to you about, and everything we've been talking about, I'm doing off the top of my head. I didn't look at any notes. I just looked at the list to see if I touched everything I wanted to. I mean, there's so much to cover, and we have a nation that we need to survive. If our nation falls, the rest of the world falls too. You know, we are the last shining city on the hill, and if we fall, Israel will go. We're already seeing Canada slip away from us, but we've got to maintain that, and we've got to teach it to the kids, and that's something your group does. You bring in young girls, you show them, you have one coming up here now, Mini Camp Congress for Girls in Orlando, which is next weekend. Or is it this? Yeah, this coming weekend.
That's not ours.
No,
that's not ours.
Oh, you had it under your events on your website.
That's not ours. But,
someone must have posted. Yeah.
No, I don't know which. It's okay, but no, I mean, listen, it is one thing that we've been focused on, and my daughter's a perfect example. I mean, she's a millennial, and, amongst her generation, it's not a popular thing to support President Trump. Actually, she got kicked off, and I shouldn't tell you this, but I'm going to because it's a story she needs to tell herself. But she got kicked off of all of the dating, the Bumble or whatever, Tinder. All of them are owned by, I guess, the same parent company or whatever. She got kicked off all of them because she was a conservative. Because in her profile, she said, "I'm not with her," and so people would go and complain about her. She got kicked off. I mean, so yeah. But the thing is, she loves this president. She fights for him. But you know what? It's not cool. And so you got to get these girls engaged. Look, I just believe that no matter what you believe in, you need to fight for it, and you can't be afraid. And if you believe in something for the right reasons, then you shouldn't have a problem. I'm asked all the time, how did you learn to do media? You push back and whatnot. Well, it's because it's in what I'm fighting for is something I believe in. I don't need somebody to give me talking points because I live it every day. So I would encourage anybody, no matter what side of the aisle they're on, go out there and fight for what you believe in, but be respectful of others. We're not all going to agree, but have the common sense and decency to respect other people. This is America. We can believe in what we want, but you know what? Just respect other people and be nice to each other.
Absolutely. Now, I got to tell you one story, though, because when I left Somerville after you and I were up there, by the time I got home, and it's about a 2.5, 3-hour ride, by the time I got home, my Beaufort Tea Party website was down. My site on certain social networks was closed. My radio website was down. I got home and someone figured out who I was and went in there and was actually closing accounts out on me. How they did it without, knowing my password or anything else, but they were taken down. And I called one company and I'm talking to the owner and he said, "I'm showing here that you requested it to be closed." And I said, "No, it took me 2 weeks to get everything back up." So yeah, we're under attack, but we have to be willing to face it, fight back, and just keep on going. Don't let them knock you off the horse. And if you do get knocked off, just get right back on and keep charging forward. It takes a lot to do it, but we all have it inside ourselves.
We do. And it's, one other piece of advice I'd give people is team up with somebody. You don't have to go out there and do it by yourself. Get a group of women that you enjoy being with, or a group of men. And by the way, Women for Trump, it's not just women that attend our events. Women and men attend our events. Our only requirement is that you have to support the president. But get a group of people and go out there and do it. It makes it much easier. People are not as likely to give you any problems if there's a group of you. And you'll have fun too. Yeah. You'll have fun. But I do agree with you. It's going to get worse. It is going to get a lot worse. So be ready for it. Be prepared for it. But whatever you do, don't give up.
Absolutely not. Amy, it has been a pleasure. I look forward to seeing you soon.
Me too. Have a great night, and thanks for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. Amy Kremer, I like to call her my friend, and it's womenfortrump.com. God bless Amy for all the hard work you do. And we're down to our last 4.5 minutes, and that's all we got for today. We have... Oh, geez, my name just went out of the window. Greg Laurie is going to be no, not Greg Laurie. Lou Pepper is going to be joining us about a book about the truth about Pearl Harbor on our next show. It is an eye-opener on how much screw-ups there were, but it's going to be a great show next week. Curtis will be back with us. And I am on the mend. I promise I'm going to try to stay out of the hospital. My doctor yesterday said, stay away from hospitals, stay away from doctors. They're bad for you. Every time you see one, something goes wrong. Anyway, I am on the mend, and I'll be back in full form again on Friday with Curtis with us. So I want to thank everyone that has joined us. It has been very interesting. The links to Tony Shaffer's article is up on the page here, as well as Colin Flaherty's website and Women for Trump, Amy Kremer. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. So I say until next week, same bat time, same bat station. I'll say good night and God bless as we end with Gary Pecorella's song, Save America.
I'm praying for this land I love, America, America, the home of the free. But there are people making plans to change America. They've no respect for her or what matters most to me. That's why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. For the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe in God we trust. And the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to save America. Do you hear our battle cry across America? We've got to rescue her. You know it's up to me and you to see the truth behind their lies. Don't change America. God bless America and the red, white, and blue. That's why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Lord, for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe
90 seconds.
And the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to save America.
60 seconds.
That's why us. For the friends we have loved and lost, then we still believe in God we trust. In the freedom our forefathers granted us, we know it's not too late to save America. Save
10 seconds.
Let's save America. Together we can save America.